Let's get going. Where's my gavel? Boom, boom. Okay, here we go. Good morning. The May 21st, 2026 virtual meeting of the Anne Arundel County Council is now in session. We are here for department budget presentations regarding the proposed FY27 budget for the county. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Smith.
Present.
Ms. Pickard.
Present.
Mr. Volke.
Present.
Madam Chair, Ms. Hummer.
Present.
Ms. Fiedler.
Present.
Ms. Rodbian is absent, and Ms. Ledbetter.
Present.
Legislative Counsel Meredith Beach.
Present.
And Audit Manager Melanie Bishop.
Here.
Okay. Madam Secretary, do any of my colleagues have any questions before we begin? Okay. Madam Secretary, please read the Open Meetings Act statement.
The county attorney has asked that I read the following statement. The Maryland Open Meetings Act is a state law that requires public meetings to be open to the public and to be held in places reasonably accessible to individuals who would like to attend these meetings. In addition, provisions of the county charter and the rules of procedure of the county council require meetings to be open to the public and held in Annapolis as the county seat. The virtual format of this meeting of the County Council includes alternate accessibility features that the Open Meetings Act Compliance Board and the courts have reviewed and approved, such as having a call-in phone number that allows anyone with a telephone to call and listen to the meeting, broadcasting the meeting with video and audio on cable TV and on the web, allowing written comments from the public to be filed with a clerk and considered by the council, and now allowing the public to call in via Zoom and testify live. The public access provided by this technology makes this virtual meeting reasonably accessible to the public as required by the Open Meetings Act. In addition, and for all of the same reasons, it is not necessary to suspend the rules of procedure of the County Council that apply to public participation and reasonable seating for the public or media or the location of the council meetings. These rules have been deemed satisfied and do not need to be waived in order for this meeting to be held.
All of today's presentations will be from the Department of Public Works. Welcome, DPW. Please remember to introduce yourself when you start, and we will now turn it over to DPW. Ms. Henry.
They are coming forward, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to share my screen, and if Bo is here, he will kick off remarks.
Good morning. This is Bo Zhao from the Budget Office. The Department of Public Works, the FY27 budget starts on page 216 of the budget book. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the Director, Karen Henry, for her presentation.
Right. Good morning, everyone. Madam Chair and the esteemed council members. My name is Karen Henry, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Director of the Department of Public Works. So today we're going to be presenting our fiscal year 27 operating and capital budgets, and it's during National Public Works Week. And this year's theme is Power by Service Rooted in Community, and that recognizes the essential work and professionals that plan, build, maintain, and operate the infrastructure that keeps our communities moving. I want to acknowledge my dedicated staff that are here with me today. For the operating budget, we have Aaron Day, our Assistant Director, as well as our Deputy Directors, Alex Bakier for Highways, Beth O'Connell for Engineering, Noelle Anaskevich for Utility Operations, Rhodey Holdhouse from Waste Management Services, Eric Michelson with Watershed Protection and Restoration. And I also have with me our dedicated DPW budget support team who diligently analyze all of our data and keep us fiscally responsible. So getting into it, just a reminder that Public Works is funded by 4 fund sources. One is the general fund, which is about 10% of our overall budget. And then we have our Watershed Protection Fund, the Utility Operating Fund, and the Solid Waste Fund. Our overall budget request is $411,966,500. And throughout the presentation, I'm just going to round up or down on those numbers. So our biggest request is for the capital improvement program optimization. We have, and just for your understanding, we fund the operations of capital projects within 2 funds. One is the utility fund, which manages all of the utility capital projects, and the other is the general fund, which manages all of the general fund related projects. The CIP optimization is the largest component of our 27 request, and it benefits not just Public Works, it really benefits the entire county and every department that we work with to deliver capital projects. What we found is that our current strategies, that long-term strategies that have been in place for many decades, are no longer working well, or as well as we would like. So what we know has happened is we've had a strategic shift in financing. In 2016, the county shifted from 20-year to 30-year bonds, which unlocked tremendous financial power, and we were able to bring on a lot of additional capital projects because of the funding that was available. And what we found is in 2016, we had a $3.4 billion 5-year capital program that has ballooned in fiscal 26 to $5.7 billion. And what that means in terms of projects is we had 450 in 2016, and now we have 650 in 2026. These are all projects that DPW manages. And it's just a huge workload that we have tried to supplement with project managers from outsourced through our HERE contract, but it's really not fully addressing the unprecedented growth and CIP capacity and complexity that we have seen over the last 10 years. So what is our plan? We have a different core strategic pillars. One is risk mitigation. What we mean by that is reduce the risk in project planning and execution. Transparency, we want to improve our collaboration with the county agencies and the public. Workforce development, we mean intentionally organize and develop our staff. And sustainability, so that we continue to build infrastructure that benefits the county for years in the most efficient and effective manner possible. As I mentioned, what the plan is really trying to adapt to this growth that's happened. We want to realize cost effectiveness across all project classes and achieve our goals for a project plan that, and schedules, whether that's for financially keeping costs down and also maintaining our schedules. And then we want to use modern tooling that will help us improve our processes. So our strategy, this is the first strategy I'm going to talk about, is design manual updates. The design manual was updated for any general fund type requirements, which would be related to roads, landscaping, many different aspects of things that are not related to utilities. It was a very superficial update to utility assets. What we need to do now is dive in and get really serious about updating with what the modern technology is and what we've learned through many years of utility operations, and make sure that we have the best and most reasonable utility assets, whether that's pipes, pumping stations, all the things that manhole covers, all of that. It's better standardization, and the development community and our contractors that design and construct our capital projects are all on the same page with what's required as far as utility assets. What we're seeing today from an outdated design manual is, one, we have some substandard utility assets that we end up accepting because they meet the old design manual standards, but they really don't meet today's functionality. What that leads to is increase our maintenance cost. And then as far as capital project, it increases our change orders because they're designing the project and constructing it to the old design manual standards, which are no longer relevant in some cases. And then it has to get changed in order to meet what we need today. So our goal for the design manual updates is to ensure that future infrastructure meets or exceeds our modern industry benchmarks. It is adopted to durable designs to extend asset life cycles. I mean, that's always our goal, is to make our assets last as long as possible. And align designs with county code before signing on CIP contracts. And then that will cost us $500,000 from the utility fund to update the manual. Our other strategy is data-driven processes. Right now, the way we function is we do not have a lot of key performance indicators that we follow to determine whether our projects are successful or not. We have limited transparency into project management. Project managers are able to go into an e-builder system and update where they are with their project. That transparency for the public and for our user agencies is not as accessible. And we want to make it more transparent. And then we have a lot of inefficient and extraneous processes. A lot of it has to do with government bureaucracy. And we're working with a consultant to help us get through a lot of that to see how can we be more efficient within Public Works and our partners. So what these kind of the way we're functioning right now is happening is we're susceptible to scope creep and delays. So we start with the project, they might want to build a fire station with 2 bays, and then, you know, a year later it's 3 bays, and then it could be 4 bays. I mean, not to pick on the fire department because it's certainly not their fault. Things change because we haven't really defined the scope as well as we could up front in the very beginning of the project start. Leadership, whether that's in other departments and even within Public Works, lacks visibility into specific projects, where they are, what's happening, what's working well, what's not working well. Project success depends on the habits of our individual project managers. And it is difficult for us to accurately estimate timelines and budgets when we have some of these crazy processes that are not efficient. So our goals is to deploy centralized project management platform to provide real-time visibility, define and enforce clear performance measures, regular data-driven project reviews, and improve the accuracy of our future project schedules. And the way we want to do this, one aspect of meeting that is to have 2 new engineer managers. One is in the general fund and one is in the utility fund. You all are very familiar with David Braun and Chris Murphy. They are our engineer administrators. They have over 300 projects each that they are responsible for understanding every single detail about those projects. They have huge amount of paperwork that they have to review, whether that's engineering, design, invoices, purchase orders, RFPs, all of the things that they have to review. It's pretty large of what they have to deal with. And they do not have the time, the adequate amount of time to focus on strategy and kind of evaluating how we do things. So that's what we want the 2 engineer managers to do. One is to provide strategic oversight. Generally, engineer managers manage a bunch of project managers. In the case of these engineer managers, they may do that, but we want them to focus on the bigger picture because that's where we're not focusing. We're focusing on one project at a time. Well, really 650 projects at a time. So you can imagine just trying to juggle all that is pretty intense. So we want them, the engineer managers, to guide the strategic oversight of capital projects. And that includes establishing and tracking the performance metrics. We can't know how well we're doing unless we're measuring it consistently. Everyone knows what the measures are, and we can say, here's what we're doing well, and be able to identify what we are not doing as well and what could change and improve. The other thing I want them to be involved in is identifying at-risk projects before they exceed budget or schedule. You all, in all of your districts, have had the crazy project, whether it's the WB&A Trail, Broadneck Trail, whatever, that has gone off the rails. And really, because the project manager, and in both of those cases, we had multiple project managers, so staff changed throughout the process, so that didn't help. But the idea is that they are seeing this before it becomes problematic and delays these projects and ends up costing us more money over time. Some other things is the transition to outsource from what we do now is outsource all of our construction management inspection, and we want to do that in-house, and I'll go into that more detail on a future slide. And a big part of keeping our assets lasting as long as we have so far has been asset management. But we know there are ways that we can optimize how we do asset management. And we want our engineer managers to focus on that, which would be identifying projects before they become failures. And then again, that ends up costing us more money. Risk mitigation and cost avoidance. What I mean by that is one is the overseeing the standardization of our design manual. So it was 20 years, more than 20 years, since 2001 is the last time the design manual had been updated. So it was a huge gap in time between when we even looked at the general fund side of things. But what we want, so we've done a good job on that of getting it updated, but it should be reviewed regularly, and we should be engaging stakeholders on a regular basis. Again, this is something our engineer administrators do not have the time to do adequately. So this is what the engineer managers would be responsible for. And then ultimately reducing our change orders by having higher quality design reviews and fewer costly field adjustments. Oftentimes going from the design into construction, there's some things missed in the design, or the design isn't working in practicality out in the field. That can cost us more money. So overseeing that from a higher level strategic point of view is what we want the engineer managers to do. And then I mentioned, again, David and Chris are amazing, and we are extremely fortunate to have them, but there's 2 humans that are doing the work of probably 10. So they sometimes get things, approvals and decision-making has bottlenecks. So this is where the engineer managers can allow them to focus on what they have to focus on and then be able to do strategy. And what we found is we created some of these blinds by this rapid scaling of our capital projects. We created some blind spots, and we want to remove those processes that are not necessary anymore and how we can be more efficient. The other position that we're asking for to help us with the data-driven processes is a management assistant 1 in the general fund. This position would handle the process of from requisition to payment for all procurement that's done for capital project. We have thousands and thousands of procurement that happens on capital projects. When you're looking at 650 projects, each project can have multitude of contracts associated with it. And then within those contracts, we have thousands of purchase orders. So it is a lot of paperwork that's happening. And we need another person to help us get through this and be more efficient. It will also free up the time project managers spend on that kind of work, where we are estimating 8 to 16 hours of paperwork a week for each project manager for each project that they're working on. So it can be a significant relief to have this management assistant 1, so that the project managers can focus on technical field oversight, which is what they need to be doing. Another thing that when we're not processing our purchase orders quickly enough and taking in the invoices and paying those quickly, we find that we get into strained relationships with our contractors who don't trust us to pay. So this position will be able to focus on that and avoid any late fees that may happen if we don't pay our invoices on time. Just the sheer volume, it's 30 to 45 hours a week of processing. That's what this one position would be doing to support the over 2,593 invoices that we are dealing with, on a regular basis. This is usually like in a monthly time period. Let's see. Okay, so in audit compliance, we want to make sure that all of our paper, any procurement meets any audit requirements and is audit ready. And when we do our request for budget, the auditor's office gets access to the e-builder systems where we keep everything. That's our project manager software. Today, we're looking at an Oracle project to improve our processes. But anyway, all the documents will be ready in a timely manner for our auditors to take a look at. And also the position will manage granular line item data entry for all purchase orders and invoices. All right, our third strategy, and I promised I would say more about this, is revamping our construction management and inspection. So currently we have a third-party contract for that, and it's bid for every project. So it requires a full-time inspector be on site during construction for every project. It is as I stated, contracted per project. So when we go out to bid for a new park, we're also bidding for construction of a new park. We're also bidding out a construction management and inspection firm to oversee the work of that contractor. The way they charge us is based on how long the project lasts, not a percentage of the cost of the project. So what our current numbers look like is we're spending about 22% of our construction cost on construction management and inspection. The industry standard says 15% is how much you should be spending. So we already know we're way overspending. What we're finding is there's really no incentive for the construction management firm or the inspector to stay on schedule. It actually can benefit them because one, that's based on how long the project lasts, so they get, additional change orders. Construction management inspectors usually come from all over the region. They don't necessarily live, they can live anywhere. If they live in, and they go everywhere. So if they live in Anne Arundel County or near Anne Arundel County and they're on an Anne Arundel County project, it's in their best interest to stay on an Anne Arundel County project because their next project could be in Virginia or wherever. So I don't think they're doing anything illicitly wrong. I just don't think the way we are organized creates a situation where they need to stay on schedule and on budget. Our construction and these CMI firms bid based off, they assume that there's going to be delays, so they increase their pricing because of that. And we want to get away from that as well. And because they're not a county person, they really have limited authority to direct and control work. So anytime they're out there and they see, okay, they're unsafe, they have to call a project manager or someone on the county team in order to stop the work. And then if they're kind of going off, the project's going off the rails, it requires going back to Anne Arundel County folks in order to get it on the rails. Sometimes they delay, and when they tell us it's going off the rails, so then it's really going off the rails. So anyway, that's some of the problems and issues that we have with the current way that we're set up. So the goals of revamping the CMI is to reduce our costs to get back down to that 15% of construction cost, increase accountability and authority, perform 80% of the CMI work in-house, and retain that result will retain institutional knowledge with in-house staff. We get constant turnover of these inspectors because we're bidding project by project. So our solution here is, or part of the strategy is to hire 4 new program managers to focus on construction management and inspection. 2 in the general fund, 2 in the utility fund, although 1 in the utility fund is actually a reclassification. It was a construction inspector. We had 1 construction inspector that did some construction inspections. We tried for a year to fill the position, actually it was over a year to fill the position, and we were unable to do that. Pretty much came down to when we would offer the position and work on salary, we couldn't meet the salary requirements. So we just, that's part of why we're thinking of how we came up with this plan. In-house construction management would move away from what we consider to be an expensive third-party CMI model. The program manager, the county program manager, would be responsible for complete project delivery. They would also be responsible for adherence to a strict project timeline and standards. They would be a county employee, so they would, have more authority on the site to make decisions and to get the project to completion. We are requesting to do what we're calling a hybrid CMI program, where in the event that we have a highly technical project, sometimes in utilities this happens where it's something outside of the normal expertise, we would bring in a third-party CMI for something like that. But generally, most of the projects, like I said, 80% of them should be able to be done in-house. We would do a staff augmentation for inspectors. We've tried to hire the inspectors. It didn't work for us. So we would like to do something like we do with HERE, which is go out and get a firm that would be dedicated to working for Anne Arundel County to do inspections. So overall, our annual CMI expenditure is about $13.9 million. We believe we can do an annual savings of $3.3 million upon full-scale implementation in the capital program. This is a diagram of how we would be organized. The Bureau of Engineering chief engineer would still be in charge of everything. We're already divided up by general engineering handles all general engineering projects and utilities engineering handles all utility projects. The engineer manager would report directly to the administrator looking at strategy, all the things I talked about, strategy, CIP optimization, CMI, asset management. This new management assistant one I'm requesting would report to this engineer manager. And then we'd have two program managers for general fund, and 15 is how many augmentation staff we would need for actual inspectors. And that would be mirrored over here on the utility engineering side, except for they won't have the management assistant one. Just FYI, the management assistant one works in general engineering, but they handle all of the utility and general engineering procurement. So just summarizing the CIP optimization staffing, it's $569,000 in the general fund, $340,000 in the utility fund. We're requesting 2 new engineer managers, 3 new CMI program managers, and 1 reclass of a construction inspector to a program manager, and 1 new management assistant one. All right, okay, if I'm going to move on to general fund. So what's driving the increases in our general fund request is streetlight electricity. So we had a budget last year of $5.8 million. This year it's $7.1 million, 23% increase. We are seeing about 220 plus new lights a year. New street lights are a result of new development and also security. What I mean by security is the police department will reach out to us in certain neighborhoods where they feel that lighting will help reduce crime. And we, meet their request and install new street lights as needed and requested by the police department. The cost for these street lights have gone up significantly. Some of the reasons for that is we used to be able to just repair these the old style light, mercury style lighting, and it would cost $50 to $100. Well, with these new LED features, although they were supposed to reduce our overall energy cost, it really costs us a lot more to replace them because they're not repaired. They have to be totally replaced, and that's about $700 to $800 per light. So that's a pretty big raise in cost right there. In the last few years, the Public Service Commission, through BG charges us, was raised 10% since 2026, and since 2024, and in 2026 they're adding another 1.6% onto the electricity cost. So even though these LED fixtures are using less energy, we have more of them, they're costing more, and the energy rate is just going up. So this is what the result is. We need more money in our streetlight electricity fund. Our second request in the general fund that's increasing our budget is in permanent patch paving. Last year's request was $525,000. This year's request is $984,000. It's a large increase. Mostly it's a one-time increase to tackle the 130 roads, 73 lane miles of backlog that we have right now. Winter Storm Fern did a number on our roads. You already know way more than you probably want to about Winter Storm Fern. You can drive down your roads and see the potholes that were created that weren't there before the storm. Some potholes we can fix, they're superficial potholes. This is to get those roads that need more than just that superficial pothole fix. The idea here is to extend the service life of the pavement, prevent minor service defects and escalating into roadway failures, address edge failures and potholes for public safety. I mean, that's our primary goal. Potholes are something that we respond to within 48 hours because it is a public safety hazard. And a big thing part of it is reducing the county's liability exposure when there is a pothole, because they can damage cars and people can trip and fall and things like that. All right, I'm going to move on to the utility fund. So two big things have increased the budget, or part of what's driving our increase in the budget for the utility fund. One, again, electricity, but this is straight up electricity. So we need to, obviously, we use a lot of electricity to run treatment plants, pump stations, wells, and all of our other facilities related to water and sewer management. We have a energy management plan in place that we've been working on for many years to reduce the amount of energy we use. But the more we try to reduce the amount of energy we use, they just keep raising the electricity rates. So we're kind of not getting anywhere with that, but at least we could be a lot worse off is how I see it. We're just continuing to see energy rate increases, but also we've had historical underfunding for electricity for the last couple of years. So we're trying to get that fixed through this request this year. The other request that's driving our increases is water and sewer purchases. You know, very familiar with, hopefully, with the Baltimore City, that we do purchase sewer services from Baltimore City, Howard County, and Baltimore County just for that one service area. But we also down in the South purchase sewer services from Calvert County for our Rosehaven sewer area. So as our costs are going up, their costs continue to go up. So that's the result of that. We are requesting a one-time funding to replace this 1999 Peterbilt semi-truck. It is a vehicle that is 27 years old. This will probably mean more to Mr. Volke, but it transports the sewage from the Chesapeake High School, Bodkin Elementary School, and Chesapeake Middle School 3 to 5 times a day. They built a wastewater treatment plant there that has never worked. So Anne Arundel County Public Works is responsible. There's through an agreement that we are responsible for emptying their system out 3 to 5 times a day so that they don't have any overflows at the schools. This is the truck that does that. It carries a container on the back and it sucks out the sewage, takes it to one of our treatment plants. This truck requires a Class A CDL license. We only have one operator in utilities that has the Class A license. So when he takes a day off, we have to contract the work out. It's much more expensive than doing it in-house. If the modern replacements for the similar type truck that can do the similar type work is just requires a Class B license, and we have 10 operators with those licenses. So we have a lot more flexibility. If we were to rent a similar vehicle, it would cost us $260,000 per year. It's very expensive to have Beal or whatever company come out to, to remove the sewage and take it to one of our plants. We are requesting a new position for our SCADA system, a SCADA system analyst. For SCADA, reminder, is supervisory control and data acquisition. That is the brains of our water and sewer operation. It can helps us reduce staff because it can remotely control plants and pumping stations and other infrastructure. This is a nationwide problem, as is, by the way, potholes is a nationwide problem. I just read an interesting article about that recently. But rising sophisticated cyber attacks targeting critical water and sewer infrastructure. They are very sophisticated. They're happening more and more. We get daily, we get alerts, not daily, but they come in pretty frequently about an attack attempt or an attack actually happened in other parts of the nation. The state General Assembly approved a bill. They called it Modernized Maryland Act. It was House Bill 1205, which requires utilities to improve their infrastructure so that it's prepared for prevent cyber attacks. The position would be primarily responsible for strategic management of our operational technology and security. They would be responsible for monitoring and defending our physical assets from cyber threats, and be a liaison between utility operations, Office of Information Technology, and emergency management when it comes to cyber events and the prevention of them. We have a lot of SCADA infrastructure. These are numbers just give you a little hint of, and these are all pathways into creating a cyber attack. Any of these could be where a, bad actor would try to attack our system. And our SCADA infrastructure is vital for the reliable and safe water delivery. So now I'm going to get into our rates for our water and sewer enterprise fund. I know you all already know this, but I like to remind you about just so it's fresh. We have our operating expenses are paid for by current user rates. We also have an account charge that is the minimum charge that's charged for when basically pays for us to bill customers, to print the bills and to send them out. We also use a little bit of that user rate for pay-go funded capital. Those are projects that don't need have a 30-year lifeline, like meter replacements and things like that. On our debt service side, to pay for capital projects, we have the infrastructure maintenance fee. That's a percentage of the user rates. It's set at 35%. It pays for rehabilitation of our system. And then we have the capital facility connection charge. That's charged per EDU. It pays for growth. As we talked about at the last budget hearing in 25 for the 26 budget, I promised we would do a rate study to evaluate how we're doing rates. We did the rate study. What it found was we are woefully dependent on revenue streams that are not fixed. And the variableness of that leaves our utility fund at a disadvantage and at risk. Fitch ratings require, in order for you to get a good rating from Fitch, you need to have a 30% of your revenue coming from a reliable fixed stream. And for us, that's only 7% of our overall rates. This is the debt service outlook. I know you all have seen this before. Our current track is pretty bad. So it's showing in 2033, if we continue on the track we are with minimal raises in our, user rates and that sort of thing, that we will be out of money in 2033 to pay for any capital projects, whether it be growth or maintenance projects. So our consultant did this chart for us. It looked at, we have this gap of money that we need in order to get a positive cash balance. Rather than just try to get it all up and, raise the funds in 1 year, he was recommending that we divide it up over a number of years, slowly ramping up the amount of revenue that we need to raise to get to the point where we need to be. At the same time we did our rate study, the Maryland Department of Environment notified us we had applied for a state revolving loan, which is a low interest loan for several of our utility projects. We do that, pretty much every year. They told us we were not eligible because we did not have enough debt service ratio and their metrics that they use. They said we need to raise $12 million in order to be eligible for the low interest loans. They also did a study, their own look at our rates, and said that our affordability metrics show that an increase to raise the $12 million would meet county median household income. And this is the letter that they sent us about this. Just to point out major parts of this letter, the MDE requires a forecasted debt service coverage ratio of 1.2 or higher, and in order for them to give us a loan, and Anne Arundel County does not meet that. They utilize a target user rate benchmark, which is 2% of the local median income, and their data suggests that we, in their words, that we have significant headroom within our current rate structure to accommodate the necessary adjustments without exceeding federal or state affordability thresholds. Water and sewer infrastructure, and really all infrastructure, whether it's highways or anything that the county is built, the county and the nation are built on, it's a problem nationwide. So American Water Works Association has coined this term beyond the replacement era, because we've spent years just, as pipes fail, pumping stations, outgrow their lifespan, we replace things, but we have to move beyond that to really manage our aging infrastructure. And I talked earlier about asset management and the engineer managers focusing more on that so that we're as efficient as possible. We are constantly facing stricter regulatory mandates that just cost money. Every regulation is a new, basically more money in trying to meet that regulatory requirement. Climate change resilience, an example of that is we have some pumping stations in some low-lying areas of Anne Arundel County. We are having, when we're doing an upgrade to those, that upgrade includes raising their height so that they're at a higher level than at sea level. That costs more money than it would have if we didn't have to do that, but we do have to do it because we're seeing flooding at these stations in wet weather and when the tide surges. And escalating cybersecurity threats, in order to address those or prevent that from happening, cyber attacks from happening, again, it costs more money. So this is a national number here, the impact on consumers. If infrastructure costs are funded exclusively through traditional water bills, which is how most utilities function, although not all, average household rates are projected to surge by 126% by 2050, just to cover all of the infrastructure needs that are happening across the nation. Basically, we're challenging our traditional funding model, and that's what I'm going to ask for next. Well, maybe not quite next. First, the operating budget, we are asking for a 9% increase. I mentioned all the things that are driving the costs and how we came up with the 9%. We are required by county code to keep a 2-month operating budget minimum in our reserve fund. Even with a 9% increase, we know we're not going to meet that, but we think we can recover with this plan for the next 5 years, rate increases over the next 5 years at different various amounts in order to get back to what we're required to do per county code. So that pays for operating budget. In the debt service, we're recommending a new fixed fee. I know you all are a little familiar with it. We're calling it a utility investment fee. It's identified in Bill 4226. This is where we needed to raise that funds in order to get that terrible looking chart to look a little better. We're still not, even with the plan to introduce the utility investment fee, it's not quite getting us to where we need to do. The code says we need to have 2 years of debt service. This is what the yellow number is. We know we're not going to meet that, but over time we will with this plan to slowly introduce that utility investment fee. We are keeping the infrastructure maintenance fee the same. That's the percentage of the utility rate at 35%. The capital facility connection charge, we are recommending a 5% increase in that. And what that will look like on a resident's average bill, quarterly bills, how we charge, the average use is about 14,000 gallons a quarter. Today it's $211. In fiscal year 27, it'd be $249 a quarter. And then it goes up as we are looking at additional rate increases, and the biggest jump being in 27 with a 17.8% increase in the average bill. This chart shows, and this is in the bill, the legislation as well, how we would charge per meter size. So it's a fixed fee based on the meter size, and it would vary based on whatever your meter size is. The 1 inch meter, under 1 inch and 1 inch is generally residential. And 1.5, it can be a residential, it would be a rather large home, but it could be. but most of the 1.5% and up, 1.5 inch and up are commercial. And this shows the breakdown of how many meters are that size in the different groups. So even with the new rates, the 9% increase, the new utility investment fund, our rates are still very low. This is where I think MDE is talking about is, hey, you're pretty low compared to your neighbors, and you're not raising enough funds to cover what it costs to do the capital projects you need to do. Here's where we are currently. If everyone approves our request, this is where we would be on. Again, this is an average annual bill, 14,000 gallons. The presentation that we sent this WSSC number was not updated till this morning. We just got word this morning that they raised their rates. So most of these we were aware of, and their increased rates are factored in to what they're doing for fiscal year 27. Everybody's raising their rates. We have no choice, unfortunately. The other request we're making is to increase our fire flow test fee that is identified in Bill 4126. We have not increased that fee for decades, and it is not keeping pace with what it costs us to actually perform the test. We're just asking that we recover 100% of the direct and indirect costs for doing a fire flow test. It does increase the rate from $232 per fire flow test to $612. That's not earning any profit. It's just what it costs us to do it. Just to get a little understanding about what we're doing, it requires a maintenance crew to go out to fire hydrant where, the nearest fire hydrant for where the request has been made. And then they go to the next nearest fire hydrant and so on to make sure that there's enough fire pressure in there for fire protection. That's essentially what it is. There's also an engineer involved analyzing data, putting it into a report, and that ends up going back to whoever made the request. And oftentimes, most likely it's development or new home being built or new building. But it's also, if you want to have a reduction in your insurance, you can submit a fire flow test that shows you have adequate fire pressure, and some people can get a reduction on their insurance. It takes us about 9.5 hours of specialized labor in order to do the test. That's what makes up the $612. We're just trying to get away from the general users paying for every little thing, subsidizing all the special needs that are out there, and this is one of those. This is where the Anne Arundel County currently is as we compare it to major jurisdictions. All right, I'm going to move on to solid waste, but I need to take a drink. You guys are still awake, right? Solid waste fund budget increase drivers. We have two major things driving the solid waste budget. Curbside collection contracts. We bid those out. We bid 5 most recently. The lowest bidders are the ones that are selected, and their rates went up, which is to be expected because the original contract was from 10 years ago, and we do these about every 10 years. So that's a big part of it. Just a reminder of what this is where we collect, the trash, recycling, and curbside from customers' homes. In addition to the 5 new contracts, the contracts include CPI adjustments for the 10 renewing contracts. And we've always are adding additional customers, so we have to pay them for all new customers. And big thing that's going to be happening this year is the fuel allowance adjustment. It's $5 a gallon for diesel, and they're allowed to get a fuel allowance increase per the contract. The other increase is our out of area disposal. So generally, in a normal situation, all of your curbside trash is going to Annapolis Junction, put on a train, and headed down to King George, Virginia to their landfill. And that is all part of our strategy to preserve our landfill. What comes into our landfill is generally construction materials, people's old furniture, mattresses, things like that. When we're building a new subcell, it's important that that bottom layer be what they call soft trash, and that's generally your curbside trash. So we do all of our, engineering layers, of course, go onto the landfill layers. And then when we're ready to fill it with something, we like to put in, or we really have to put in, so there's no punctures happening to the liners, is we put in this curbside, some portion of our curbside trash that gives it the soft layer. In fiscal year 25, we diverted 125,000 tons out of county. 26, it was 155,000 tons as we're opening subcell 9. And 27, we're going to continue to use some of the some will go to the subcell, but mostly we're getting back into sending our trash back to King George, Virginia. Hopefully that makes sense. We have to request, unfortunately, a increase in our charges for fiscal year 27. That's identified in Bill 4326. It's slightly less than what we thought we were going to have to do when we came to you last year. We give you this little chart, give you our outlook of what we're looking at. We want to be transparent of what we're predicting. And it's slightly less than, I think we had it maybe at 11% last year increase, and we're able to get it down to 10%. And that would go from $426 a household to $469 a household. It is charged on their annual tax bill. We are not recommending any changes to our landfill tipping fee. This just compares us to the region. It's not exactly apples and oranges. All of these different regions do something a little differently and how they collect their trash and what they allow at their landfills and all that. But it's the best we can do when it comes to solid waste comparison of charges. And last but not least is our Watershed Protection and Restoration Fund. And great news, no rate increases are needed, and there's really not any major increases in this fund. So we are doing awesome there. So wrapping up what everything, DPW is a large department. We do a multitude of essential services. Most people cannot get up and, without touching a Anne Arundel County Public Works service. So we appreciate your continued support of DPW, and we hope that you will support our fiscal year 27 requests, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see all your beautiful faces.
Okay. Thank you, Miss Henry. Hold on, I'm looking through, see who might have a flag up. I don't have everybody on my screen. I'm not seeing anyone.
Madam Chair, we have Mr. Volke, Ms. Ledbetter,
Okay.
and Ms. Fiedler with flags up.
Okay, okay. I can't see everybody. I see them now. Ms. Ledbetter.
I think I was the last one to put up my flag, but I'm going to start with one simple question. And thank you for a very thorough presentation, Director Henry. Very much appreciate the level of detail that you go into to help us understand the decision-making process, the whys and the hows. I did have a question about the fixed fee for the utility fund. And this is probably self-explanatory, but I don't want to make any assumptions. Because the fee is a percent by meter size, is it fair that I'm making the assumption that if a household is not on water and sewer, if they have no meter, therefore there's no charge?
So if they're not on water and sewer, they wouldn't be a utility customer. Is that what you're asking? So
yeah, they might only have water, or they might only have sewer, or that sort of thing. So it's only on. Sorry, I did not state the question very clearly. So if they only have public water, and
they have public water, they definitely have a meter.
Right.
If they're on public sewer without a meter, they may not have a meter. And that's a great question. I think when we calculated how the revenue that we'd be getting, we did count them in there, even though they don't have a meter, but they're going to be all residential. And we could assume the, lowest residential meter size for those. Some of them do have meters though, because they want to have less than, So they're allowed to put in a private meter, which we read. I think you know, because we had a customer question about that recently. So they are allowed to put in a private meter that we read in order to pay less than what the flat rate fee. So just so everyone else knows, sewer only customers are required to pay a flat fee. It's based off of that 14,000 gallons quarter usage. Some people feel they don't use 14,000 gallons, and that may be very well true because they may only have a family of 2 or 1, and 14,000 is pretty typical of a family of 4. So they are allowed to buy a meter, put it in, we'll read it, and then they pay an actual, that we're metering their water, which is usually going to be well water, and to get the true sewage cost, what they're really using for sewage, and then that's how we charge them. Okay. So in that case, we did factor them in. I have to look to see. I'm pretty sure it's probably looking at a typical residential meter size.
Okay. Thank you. It's helpful to just a lot of moving parts there.
Yeah, no, that's a great question.
I have a couple other questions, but I'll defer, let some other folks have a turn.
Okay. Ms. Fiedler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Henry, for going over that extensive presentation for all that the department does. I'm going to ask about you mentioned late fees for invoices as one of the reasons for optimization goals. What have we paid to date for late fees on invoices?
I'm going to have to get that back to you because I don't know, but I don't know off the top of my head. And I don't want to give you a wrong number.
Okay. We don't want late fees. I'm just curious about the total expenditure there. Okay. And then following up in that same area, the breakdown that you provided for the CMI positions and what we will save on the CMI side. What is then the expenditure on the personnel side? I know it's probably less than what we are saving in CMI, but I would like to know what that is.
Yeah, so that's the $3.3 million that we would.
That does account for that.
Yeah, it subtracts. So it subtracts what the savings subtracts what we would be paying for our in-house people, because they're going to cost us something, right? They're costing the dollars that I've already mentioned. So so that 3.3 does factor in the fact that we have to pay people in-house to do the work, and also that contract, the staff augmentation for the actual inspectors.
Perfect. The way that I interpreted that slide was just the savings, it didn't stand out to me that it also incorporated what the expenditure would be on the personnel side. So thank you for clarifying that. On slide 17, you showed the light replacements and new light cost. We don't have any flexibility there. Is that correct? We have to install the LED fixtures?
Yes, they're no longer even, that's part of the reason why we can't fix old ones and have to replace them, because they don't have the parts anymore. So the world's going to LED, and it's just costing us more money than we thought.
And they're purple half the time.
Yeah.
And then the fire flow test in general, not just the fee, but how many of those are requested per year?
Yes, I have that number. We do about 20 per month, so about 240 a year.
Was there any discussion on phasing in over like 2 years or 3 years that increased fee? Because that is I understand that we are woefully below other jurisdictions, but that is a pretty big jump, 200 something to 6 or 8, I think that was.
No, we didn't. We just, want to just make it right as soon as possible. And then, it should have been done, frankly, many years ago, evaluate it, but we didn't until now.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Mr. Folke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Director Henry.
Good morning.
I fully support the new Peterbilt so you can keep it out down at Chesapeake and Bodkin. So thank you.
Yeah.
And I think your cost assessment on it would be exactly the question that I would have asked. What's it going to cost to rent this versus to replace this and do it? And what are the cost savings with the additional people that you can sort of sub in and not have to backfill? So I appreciate the thoroughness of that sort of presentation, and all my questions on that were answered. But I just want to say I appreciate you all doing that. So thank you.
Thank you.
So from kind of a higher level, and you sort of hit on it just a moment ago, but you said some of this should have been looked at years ago, but we didn't. And your entire budget presentation feels that way to me, right? In that, and this is not a knock, let me say that. Like, I'm not trying to zing you. I think there were other priorities that people had in other departments and other parts of the county, and DPW was sort of pushed over here. Now we're seeing what that looks like when you push that off a long time, and we have to do big increases to try to get that fixed. But I did want to ask you about something that you talked about at the very beginning of your presentation. You mentioned that because of the increase from 20 to 30-year bonds that happened back in 2015, that increased the size of the capital program. And I was curious if you could speak to how much the actual increase in bonding authority was on that 20 to 30-year bond increase.
I don't know about the bonds. I just know our budget because the Office of Finance is focused on the bonds. They support us by, purchasing the bonds and doing all that paperwork side, which Public Works isn't really involved in. I just know that we went from the 3.7 billion to 5.3 billion. I mean, we really raised the budget quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, and I was thinking, the PPI and the increase in funding that came from that, I think was a component of that as well in 2019. So I don't know that all of it, if the numbers that I was finding were that the 20 to 30-year bond, it was going to increase us like 25 or $50 million, somewhere in that range in terms of bonding authority. But I think the PPI gave us 250 million. So I think those things coupled, plus then, and I was trying to find it in this year's budget, but the roughly $1 billion in PAYGO money that we've deployed into the capital program, I think has also helped to increase the size of that. So I think there's a variety of factors there. So I wanted to understand that and that comment out of the gate, because I think those decisions have been made over multiple administrations, multiple councils, and many, many years at this point. So this is what it looks like. Okay.
Yes. And I will say that,
go ahead, please.
a couple, when I first became the director, I did come in and ask for new project managers. So I thought that would help solve the problem, and you all were supportive of that, and I appreciate it. But that really now, as I've been in the director job for 3.5 years, and I mean, the experience, what I'm seeing, it's deeper than just the project management. We are not strategically looking at our capital program. And that's why I'm asking for these positions. And I believe that with a more strategic approach to it and having dedicated people that can do all this work that no one's really has time, or they'll start and not able to finish because a project's on fire, I feel that that's going to help.
Yeah, and I think your CIP optimization plan, look, I have a lot of thoughts on it, but I don't know that my thoughts are any better than your thoughts. That's what I'll say. Because I think you all have thought long and hard about how to try to do it, and this is where you've landed. And I could certainly sit back and say, look at this or look at that. But I appreciate the way that you all are at least trying to step out of the box that we're in and go to a new box and say, how can we do this entirely differently? And where do we really see the pitfalls? So I want to applaud you for that, because I think that's great. I'm not excited about having to add more people to the county to do it, but I also think your point about where incentives lie and where the project managers and the project inspectors and the contract labor, where their focus is versus where a county staff person's focus may be, I was well received by me to hear that, so I appreciated that. And I guess sort of looking at all of that, so I get the point that you were talking about with Mr. Murphy and Mr. Braun with the engineering managers and needing more at that level to be able to manage what is, I guess, if I'm doing the math right, I don't know, 40% increase in projects if you're going from 400 to 600, something like that.
Yeah.
So that's a significant increase. The management assistant I was curious about, and the reason is as you were speaking about that, you were talking about kind of managing paperwork and managing, all of these systems. I was wondering what degree is sort of any artificial intelligence that we're seeing and using in the county going to help us to be able to assess workflows or to be able to do some of those things and maybe do them more efficiently without having to bring on more people?
That's a great question. We have this consultant that we're working with, and that is one of the things we're asking them to look into is how can AI help us with some of these processes? Either can the process be eliminated? That's like I think we have some that, why are we still doing it that way? But others are, is there another more efficient way to do it? We have Oracle coming on, and I think we're your last budget hearing, right? So you've probably heard more than you want to know about Oracle. I didn't want to focus on Oracle because I know you're probably tired of hearing about it. But that is initially probably going to raise the amount of workload initially. But there is an AI component to the Oracle program that ultimately over time, once the Oracle is familiar with how we're doing things and can start thinking on its own, will help us. That's the idea and one of the benefits of Oracle. So yeah, so for today, based on our workload right now, one of the things that ties us up is procurement. And I know you got a question or a position request from Central Services asking for a new buyer to do CIP procurement. So that's really integral to our overall CIP optimization. And this management assistant is just supporting all of that.
Yeah, appreciate that. And that's the engineer in you trying to cut out steps in process. So I appreciate it too. So thank you. All right, I'm gonna hold the rest of what I thoughts because Miss Ledbetter is holding her flag and I don't want her hand to get tired. So I'm gonna wait.
Miss Ledbetter.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Volke. It's not that hard. It's more trouble to fight my cat off of the camera than it is to hold the flag. I wanted to circle back to the Chesapeake cluster, and don't worry, Mr. Volpe or Director Henry, I also support the truck as well. I understand the necessity of that. But you did say something in your presentation that made me ask the question. You mentioned that the pumping stations in that cluster have never been, always had a problem. They've never worked properly. And from conversations I've had with you in the past, I know that pumping and hauling is not what DPW, that's not the business that you want to be in forever. And so it just makes me wonder, is there any hope that or plan or possibility? I mean, hope is not a course of action, which is why I'm not suggesting that we don't fund the truck. But looking long term, is there any possibility that those pumping stations could ever be operational so that this isn't something that we as a county continue to have to do?
It's not a pumping station. It's a wastewater treatment plant. And that area is not on public sewer. Once you, I don't know if you're familiar with Mountain Road, but once you get past the giant, it's all septics, except for the school that was supposed to have a wastewater treatment plant. It's probably why they got the okay to put the school down there. My kids go to school there. So, but down there and kind of in the middle of nowhere around nothing, right? So, but it never worked. And that school was built in the 70s. I think the end, like 79 maybe. And so it's 76 and it's never worked. So this arrangement has been in place since 76. So I don't see any improvement unless someday somebody wants to develop that, which would require code changes on the density back there. I mean, it is, it's a septic area. So I don't see it changing.
It's just fascinating to me that they built the treatment plant even, and that the treatment plant doesn't even work.
Yeah, I don't, I don't know. All I really know about that is that it didn't work, and this is what we have to do because it was before my time.
Significantly before your time. So.
Yeah, so I don't know, but I just know this is one of these legacy weird things that we're stuck with.
Yeah, I understand.
I don't want to say stuck with it. We're happy to help the schools, but it is it's an extra burden that requires a full-time person and a proper equipment in order to make it happen.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. Volke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Councilwoman Ledbetter, I'm happy to tell you the whole story one day if you want to sit down and talk about it. There is a long history. Downs Park was actually supposed to be houses. It was going to be a very big development. It never ended up happening, hence the reason the county got it. So there's a lot there. All right, back to DPW. Director Henry, on page 25 of your slide, this is one of the slides that I'm like most worried about, and I'm assuming you're probably most worried about it too. The debt service outlook and sort of the current track and the cash balance versus the minimum. And I guess, look, this is dire. from the way that I see it. And I don't mean to be hyperbolic when I say that, but I just think I'm not really sure what we're going to do to fix this model. And so, I mean, I hear you talking about the need of sort of these steady infusions of cash, which you have on page 26, and I get that. But does that? It looks like, I mean, we're not even going to be cash positive until 2033, and even then, it's a relatively small amount of cash positive in terms of the positioning. So, I mean, I get where you're coming from, and I think this, again, we are tasked with having to make decisions in the aggregate, right? And that's, I think, part of the way that this government system was set up was for us to do that. This would be a perfect place to deploy one-time funds, cash, things like that to put in here. Is that what we're doing? Is that the 15 million in 27 that we're putting in? Is that just 15 million cash infusion that we're putting into that?
Yes, that's basically what this new utility investment fee will raise. By the fixed fee by the meter size is going to raise 15 million in 27. That we are planning for little increases, which is slide 30. So in fiscal year 29, we need to raise that utility investment fee. I'm sorry, in 28, we need to raise the utility investment fee 18%, 29, 15%. And so forth and so on until we get to 36, and then we think we can level off there. We don't need to do these big increases. It's just trying to get the cash to get us so that we're not. It's a lot scary to me. And if anything catastrophic happened in this time period that we're trying to build back this capital debt service fund, we won't have the funds to do it. So if a pumping station, totally failed and had to be rebuilt, or one of our plants had a major, major issue. So it's a little scary to me because, we always want to have all the belts and suspenders, and we don't have a belt or a suspender here. So it's a little scary, but I mean, we also don't want to overburden our ratepayers. I mean, they pay for a lot and they get an awesome service compared to everyone else around us. They're getting amazing, high quality, award-winning drinking water and wastewater. But yeah, so we don't want to overwhelm them with too much. So that's why it's a little, it's a lot this year because it's a new fee. And it will be a little bit more in the future. But yeah, I guess we could have made it a crazy, even higher amount for this year to infuse more money in there. But I think this is about as far as we wanted to go without really hurting the bottom line for our residents.
Yeah. And I think that, where I was getting with this is in looking at the whole picture, tell me if I'm wrong, and maybe somebody from budget could correct me on this too, but this could have been something where in the way the cake is baked, and I refer to that as sort of the behind the scenes process when the departments present to the county exec and the whole picture is put together and then it's brought to us. And then we have to try to deconstruct the cake and figure out, or do we want to change things in different places, which I think is much, much harder than actually baking the cake the first time. It's like doing remodel work versus first time work. As you know, that's always tougher. And so this could have been a place, I think, where we could have put fund balance, one-time source money, non-recurring sources in here and said, we're going to infuse capital in here. But instead, we've chosen to deploy that in other places in the capital program to be able to continue building all the things we're building. And so instead of doing that, now we're saying, well, but we still have this problem. So to fix the problem, we've got to create this new fund, this new fee that we're going to ask taxpayers to pay. So I guess that's the way that I'm looking at it, is I think there could be a different funding source for it, and we could do it as a net sort of a revenue neutral way of doing it. But in order to do that, we'd have to make different choices in the rest of the capital program to then take that one-time money and put it in here. Am I understanding the way we can fund this correctly, or is this an enterprise fund?
I think I get what you're saying. It has to be enterprise funded. The way the code is written, the general fund cannot support the utility fund.
Okay.
So, and it would require actually it's in the charter.
Yeah.
So it would require a charter change in order to infuse general fund money to kind of raise this up. We had talked to you all about a tax that would cover this, be paid for by all the property owners, which would probably come into the general fund and be paid, put in. But after further reflection, after meeting with you and looking really deep into that, that's not something we could do because of the way the charter is written and how the utility fund has to be self-sustaining.
Got you. And that's extremely helpful to know, to understand that's the reason for doing this. And I guess the only other way then to do it would be to make different choices on how the utility fund is doing things and the uses of fund balance or monies in the utility fund and deploying them as infusions of capital here. But then that would require not doing other things that the utility fund is paying for.
Yeah, so what we've done in this budget, you'll see a little increase in PAYGO. PAYGO is the cash we use out of operating to pay for some capital projects that does help us with that fund balance in the debt service. So we're raising that, and we're paying for that with the infrastructure maintenance fee, that 35%, and the user rates, by raising it 9%. Part of that is covering the additional PAYGO that we're putting in here. So that helps us. We looked at raising the infrastructure maintenance fee to something other than 35% of the usage rates, 37.5%, but really what we would need is 50%. And then when we're comparing like where we are, it would cost us more to do that. Not cost us more, I'm sorry, it cost the residents more to the average resident and business would end up paying more than they would pay for this utility investment fee if we were to raise our infrastructure maintenance fee to 50%, which is what's needed to infuse that 15 million, and on up, as the chart shows.
Yeah. Okay. Understood. I guess, and I say this sort of every year, but there's a lady I know who lives in Pasadena who's on a very fixed income who just messaged me last night, and she's like, how am I going to pay these things? I don't have any additional money. It's the cost of living is, going up and all that. And I've known her since I was very young, and every year she tells me this, and I don't disagree with her. She's right. I think that's just what I'm always keeping in the back of my mind is obviously property taxes are going up just by virtue of even if we don't raise the rate, things cost more. And so I'm just trying to think about how all this hits everybody that we're representing. So anyway,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're muted, Miss Hummer.
There I go. I was going to have the same question about Chesapeake High School. Is there any other way to do that? I remember this back in my days on the school board, this little anomaly of the water and sewer out there. And, I know y'all got to do it, but gosh, it seems like there should be a way that we don't have to be hauling sewage out 3 times a day. But,
we've looked at, our septic to sewer program, which is in the capital budget. We have looked at that and evaluated. It would cost so much money to get the school and into it. It was a significant cost. So that's another reason. It could be done. You could put a sewer line down there. I don't think people that don't like development would be pretty upset about it, but you could even dedicate it just for the school. It would just be so ridiculously priced that it's cheaper not enough it's cheaper in the long run, but it's cheaper on an annual basis for us to do it this way.
Sure.
So, but I hear you. And we've been doing it for so long. It's just part of what we do. So we do know how to do it. And I think we do it well. So that's good.
What is it now? 50 years, 50
Yeah.
years plus to
Long
do that.
time.
So no, I definitely support the truck for that. We do not want a sewage breakdown at the Chesapeake High School complex. That would be a nightmare.
We do not. Those kids deserve the best they can get.
So, well, as you talked about, I appreciate how thoroughly and thoughtfully you went over the things that y'all need when it comes to the construction management and all of that. As I listened to it, and we do have so many projects, and I know you've heard from me, and I'm sure other council members about sometimes frustration at how long projects are taking. We have all these good things in the budget, but we're not getting them done. It sounds like everything you're doing would help increase some of that efficiency. My question is, are the positions and things you're asking for enough? Are these positions, could we be looking at the first phase on this of just adding a couple more and getting this and perhaps adding more so that we can get these things done? I'm all for bringing things in-house that we don't have to contract out. And so it sounds like there'll be some savings there. But do you foresee that we might be going even further than this in the future?
I don't think so. I think we really evaluated. This is not like Public Works asked for these many positions. I think you all know that, so we are not like crazy spenders over here. We try to be as efficient as possible. So we really looked hard and evaluated this very closely. And I feel like this is the right mix of people that we need to make it happen. The only thing I can see when we could come back, but it would be after years of trying what we set out to do here, is if we decide that staff augmentation of the inspectors would be better with in-house inspectors, or a mix of in-house inspectors and staff augmentation of inspectors. That's one thing that we'll have to test out. To get it up and running as quickly as possible, I think that's going to be the staff augmentation, and we'll be evaluating that and seeing how that works and if we have to make any changes. But I think this is going to be the right mix of staffing.
Okay. Ms. Fiedler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Your question spurred now my question. Assuming, and I'm only saying this is actually more of a statement because I don't know that we will have an opportunity publicly to really get into the nitty-gritty of this request again. I would just be interested, assuming that those positions stay in place in the budget and the budget passes, seeing in a year from now, or when it is completely up and running and those folks have been trained, I would love to see the performance comparison to pre positions and post positions, and if we actually are seeing the estimated savings or even more based on that. So just throwing that out there for future.
Now, I appreciate that. We'll have these metrics in place. That's going to be a huge, we don't really have them right now. I mean, we know how much a project costs when we estimate it to be, and then what it actually end up costing at the end. And there's a lot of reasons for the change in a cost, what a project ends up costing at the end of the day. But having that more evaluation and being able to measure it better. So yeah, I'm happy to come back and report on how we did.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I'm not seeing any other flags, so continue.
All right, so we're going to shift into capital projects. I'm just going to introduce it. So to us, capital projects are not just projects on paper. They're actually essential to the well-being of our residents and our businesses in the county. Without them, our daily lives would be profoundly impacted. So your support for our capital requests is very vital for us to continue the important work that we do. We're going to start with looks like we have highways up here. We're going to start with Alex. So sorry, Kaylee, they switched up on me. Alex is first. He's going to talk roads and traffic projects. Then we're going to go with David Braun, talking general engineering, bridges and dredging. Eric Michelson will talk about the watershed protection and restoration projects. Brody Holdhouse will talk about the solid waste class projects, and Chris Murphy will wrap it up with water and wastewater projects. So turning it over to Alex. Alex, you're on mute if you are
There we go.
Okay.
Sorry, a little technical difficulty there momentarily. Councilwoman, Chairwoman Hummer, and members of the council, good morning. Thank you very much for the chance to share our requests with you today. Let me start, as Karen said, with a review and summary of the Bureau of Highways requests. This slide just speaks to where there are differences between the prior approved program and the FY27 program. First, there is one new H-class project request titled College Parkway Improvements, and I'll share a little more detail with that later in the presentation. There's increased funding provided to road resurfacing, road reconstruction, and masonry reconstruction projects. And there's increased funding also provided to our traffic signal modifications and new traffic signals. The next slide. I'll begin with highlighting what I call our standalone projects. They're not multi-year. I'll do that subsequent to this, but these 7 projects, beginning on page 32 of the capital budget book, we have the additional salt storage capacity project, just highlighting that some funds, about $455,000, were reprogrammed to FY29 with updated cost estimates for a total of $1.262 million for the future West County Road Operations Yard. On page 42, we have our traffic maintenance facility with a request of $6.234 million of prior approved funding, no change. And again, that is to allow us to recover from the loss due to fire of our prior facility. On page 209, we have our College Parkway improvements. That's a new project. We're requesting $152,000 in FY27, and we have new funding between fiscal years FY27 through FY30. And then on page 188, we have Outing Avenue retaining walls. Based on updated cost estimates, we're requesting $82,000. On page 194, Marley Neck Boulevard road improvements. Again, due to updated cost estimates, we're requesting $320,000 in FY27, and ultimately a reduced total request in the out years of the program. Page 199, Shore and Beach road improvements, $573,000 requested due to updated cost estimates. And on page 203 is Gamble's Road at Dicus Mill road improvements for $4.72 million requested and also that's prior approved funding. No change. Next slide. So I wanted to just share a little bit more, since it's a new project, on College Parkway. This project's intent is to implement the strategies developed by the College Parkway Operational and Safety Study, which was conducted under a prior project. Just to highlight that this corridor is about the eighth worst in the county. We also have a distinct crash severity issue at College Parkway and Baydale Drive. And that is the graphic on the lower right, showing the heat map of our crash severity. We encountered both property damage, potential injuries based on crash reports. We have confirmed injuries. We have a few confirmed disabilities, and luckily no fatalities. But there's a lot of activity going on, and that is an area where we are looking to move beyond what we're able to do from just a maintenance and operational adjustment mitigation to engineering and physical changes to improve that intersection. And above that is just an operational safety study map that looked at the efficiencies and the functionality of each individual intersection throughout the corridor, and that was done by a third-party consultant. And for background, just to share, this study was originally generated based on sustained multiple years of community engagement and advocacy, and they continue to be a key stakeholder as we look at solutions to improve the corridor. And below you can see the both this year's fiscal 27 requests as well as the out year requests in 28, 29, and 30. Next slide. Okay, this brings us to my first group of multi-year projects that are managed by the Bureau of Highways. This is our pavement and masonry programs. On page 158, we have road resurfacing with a $16.335 million request in 27. That is a $2.160 million increase in 27 and a lesser $1.425 million increase in the out years from 28 through 32 over the prior approved FY26 program. On page 161, we have road reconstruction for $12.850 million in FY27. That is a $1.475 million increase in the coming fiscal year, and a slightly less $1.140 million request that will raise the baseline program funding from 28 to 32, and that allows us to then have predictability and to program each community's road reconstructions and resurfacing projects as we typically do 3 to 5 years out, and be able to anticipate what that funding is. While one-time money is always appreciated, this increase to the baseline, which hadn't been done in a number of years, allows us to efficiently both adjust to the increased costs and also provide predictability to our community and our stakeholders about when we'll be getting there to their community. And then moving to page 162, masonry reconstruction, $1.5 million. There is a change there in FY27, $385,000 increase, and a slightly less $110,000 for out years of FY28 through 32. Page 172, Arundel Mills LDC is reduced by $100,000 through the program 27 to 32, as there is a shift to the operating budget to support services in the Arundel Mills service area. On page 173, our ADA right-of-way compliance is still at 1.115, no change, and 196 is the state sidewalk maintenance and repair. No funding requested this year. As is typical, we only request funding every other year. No change to the prior approved program. And next slide, please. And this brings us to our third tranche of programs. This is the Highways Traffic Control Program, and you can see the collection of capital projects that we administer. I'll start on page 236 with guardrail. No change to the prior approved funding. On page 237, our traffic signal modifications. We did request an additional increase in funding to address the current backlog. 700,000 is requested in 27. That's a $400,000 increase over prior approved program, and a slightly lesser $30,000 increase in our baseline funding for FY 28 through 32. On page 238, excuse me, new traffic signals at 385,000. That is a slight increase as well, as we're trying to address the need for new traffic signals. We have certainly one ready to go on the shelf when funding's available, two in design and one in study. So we have 115,000 increase in 27 and a lesser 35,000 increase in the out years FY 20 to 32 to help offset increased costs in that type of construction. Neighborhood traffic control is on page 239, no change in funding. New street lighting on 240, no change in programmed and approved funding. Street light conversion, which is converting from our mercury vapor and other older technologies to LED at 500,000, no change in that funding request. Our street light pole replacements continue at prior approved funding levels on page 242, and page 243 is developer street lights as a placeholder for new development street lights that are coming into DPW inventory. No change in funding level there either. Next slide. And just to highlight, we do have two projects that are fully closed and returning funding for about 300,000 in this fiscal year. And that concludes my presentation for roads and bridges from the Bureau of Highways. Thank you. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay. Ms. Fiedler.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that presentation. For the residents on the Broadneck Peninsula, I just want to say thank you for the funding of the College Parkway improvements. It is almost to a daily, definitely a weekly occurrence of accidents. There was one just 2 days ago. So my question is, I know that you included the picture of the Baydale intersection, which I agree is by far the worst intersection for not only drivers, but now pedestrians and bikers. You really have to pay attention at that intersection. Is that the intended first location for improvements in this budget, or is the hope to do other ones as well?
I'd say that is the intended first intersection for us to focus on. Really, I'm looking to work with Nestor Flores, our Chief of Traffic Engineering, to prioritize our approach on that corridor. We've already done, I'd say, maintenance and operation type improvements for pedestrian crossings and signage and speed limits and those sorts of things. In terms of this project, yes, that would be the first intersection, but we'll be looking throughout the corridor. And I'd welcome your feedback on what you're seeing, what your constituents are seeing.
Absolutely. I was happy to be part of the community meetings while the study was taking place. Anything that we can do to expand information and to get those preliminary plans out for improvements, because I think the folks that are walking it and biking it and driving it are also insightful. So I'm happy to be a partner in that. Then my second question is the traffic maintenance facility. I know that the original project number was for relocating and renovating, but obviously those plans changed, and we did an infusion of funding in the last budget to kind of elevate or expedite the construction. Where is the now construction project? What phase are we proposing in this budget? I think it's under a different project number than page 42. I think it's the general County?
We didn't ask for any more funding in that, so that's why Alex didn't present on it, but it
Okay.
is in, design is wrapping up. We're getting very close to finishing the design. I think it's like maybe in 95% or something like that. So, and then we're going to be bidding out for construction, which cannot happen soon enough. Our staff, as you've seen them in the working conditions, it's improved since you were there last, but it's still not right. So we'll be happy to get that building built and move them into nice new quarters.
Do you have an estimated time frame for when we will bid and then goal for shovels?
Our goal is to bid the project this summer.
Okay.
It depends on how quickly that phase of things go. But I would like to certainly see shovels in the ground at the end of calendar 26, if that's possible. But probably 27 is more likely.
Okay.
I mean,
I appreciate that.
About 18 months, right, Alex?
Yes, that's right. So total construction duration is about 18 months. So even if we start the end of 26 or early 27, you still got about 18 months of construction.
Yep. I mean, that is actually better than what I thought I was going to hear. So I appreciate that. I know you all care for your staff very much. I have appreciated the times that we've gone out and met with them. And I know it's not a perfect situation, but you both have been very responsive, as has Nestor and Mary Lamb, to the needs of the staff there, making that makeshift area kind of livable. Whether it be heat or air conditioning. So just thank you for continued communication on that and working with staff.
Thanks for all your support along the way. We appreciate it.
Yep.
All right. I don't see any other flags from council members. So thank you, Mr. Bakke. We appreciate it.
All right, so David Braun is going to present on the bridge projects, dredging, and I think he might have a general county project in there.
Good morning, David Braun, Engineer Administrator with the Department of Public Works, Bureau of Engineering. We'll start with the bridge projects, which are in the same category of the same class of projects as what Alex was talking about. They're in the H class. Beginning on about page 152 or so. Next slide, please. Just a little bit of background again. The program has been relatively consistent the last couple of years. We have a current inventory of 88 structures, including an additional 2 that are under construction by development, and there are a couple others that are still being planned by development. Those will be added once they're completed and approved for addition into the program. All of these structures are inspected at least every 2 years for the variety of elements to meet all of the standard federal bridge requirements. All of our projects that you will typically see beyond our multi-year projects in this program are approved for federal aid funding, so that 80% of the construction costs is covered by the federal program, and the county covers the other 20% plus all other costs on those projects. Have 4 bridges currently that are serious or poor, which qualify for the federal aid. All of them are in our program now, as laid out here on the list. Hospital Drive and 8th Avenue are both culverts that are under our culvert invert paving program that we will talk about. McKendree Road, we've just finished construction on that, opened up the road down there. Had some interesting issues during construction, but everybody worked well together to get those resolved. To try to limit the impact to the residents down there that had to have a not insignificant detour. The other one is O'Connor Road. That one is right on the Howard County line, adjacent to CSX property, all of which brings a whole lot of other layers of work and coordination we have to do on those that have kind of delayed some of the final design on that, but we're getting close there. An additional 12 structures have one of the decking or foundation or structure identified in fair condition. If any of those on the next inspection is decreased to poor or serious, they would end up being requested to be added into the program for federal approval, so that we could address those. But we're keeping an eye on all of those. Many of those that have structures in fair condition get inspected more often than just every 2-year minimum. We have a couple at this point that we're even doing every 3 months. So we're trying to stay on top of all those that have been identified to be issues that we need to watch. Next slide, please. So a couple of things we've highlighted here. These are all of the projects in this program that have increases. Some of them, like the major bridge rehab, is just adding the FY32 funding to the multi-year project. Others, Furnace Avenue, Governor's Bridge Road, have either increases or schedule changes based on where we are with the project right now. Furnace Avenue, actually the increase there is because we're proceeding into final design, which is never included in the initial design contract with the way SHA does their program. There's a preliminary design and then final design. So Furnace Avenue is moving into the final design stage. First highlighted project is O'Connor Road Bridge over the Deep Run. That's the one I mentioned previously that has a lot of coordination issues there. But we're also looking to be ready to bid this project in FY27. And as a reminder, our bridge projects in general, when you go through the capital plan, you will see that construction funding is not included in those until we get to the point where we're anticipating construction funding in the next year. And instead, the bridge construction placeholder project shows funding to set aside some funding every year. That was done to kind of help smooth out the program and the budgeting of these projects, because based on working through the state and the federal programs for a number of months and years through the design phase, the construction cost often varies widely, both in both the amount of it and the timing of it. So the placeholder project was put in place to address that a few years ago. So now that O'Connor Road Bridge looks like it's going to be ready to be bid in FY27, we are shifting funding from the placeholder contract for FY27 and FY28 to the actual O'Connor Road Bridge project. So it's shown specifically there. And a couple lines down, you'll see that what we've done then is deleted the FY27 and FY28 funding out of the placeholder fund, just to adequately outline where those funds are coming from, and to not have put any undue pressure on the program itself. The other two highlighted projects are both projects we started 2 or 3 years ago based on inspection reports that, as we have gotten into the design and looking at what actually needs to be done, are now being canceled. I think I might have mentioned last year the Town Center Boulevard Bridge. There were actually some interim repairs done on that by the maintenance staff, and as a result of those repairs, increased the inspection criteria enough so that they're no longer considered poor or serious. And so that project is taken out of the program. And the same with the Patuxent Road Bridge. The work that has been identified as we got into details out there, which were specifically, we did a LiDAR survey of the actual, both the deck and the underdeck structure, which was the primary concern on this bridge. And they found that the improvements that are needed can be done through the maintenance program, so that we don't actually have to do the full replacement as we had feared. So the project's being canceled. And I think that is it for the bridge program. I'd be happy to address any questions that you may have.
I'm looking. I don't see any flags, so we can keep going.
Okay, thank you. Let me go ahead and jump then into the dredging program. Again, this is another one that is dependent on, in this case, the DNR Waterway Improvement Fund program, where we develop a list every year of the channels that have been identified to be dredged. We submit that list to DNR for their grant approval process, and then anything that is approved by DNR, recommended to be through the state program or through the state budget, is what ends up remaining in our program to move forward. So typically we have anywhere from 4 to 8 projects that we will recommend on an annual basis, knowing that not all of those always get approved. And typically we get 2 or 3 approved. There is a bit of a story about last year that you'll see when we get into the numbers here. That process seems to work. We're always anxious and interested in hearing from the residents of which channels they think need to be looked at. We will always look at them. We get a survey done, generate the criteria that we know needs to be done to submit to the grant program on those, and we'll include them in the program as we can wherever they're prioritized. But we accept any and all complaints and concerns about that, for us to be able to look at these channels, because in many cases, some of them are rather isolated, that we don't always hear about, as opposed to others that we hear about on a regular basis. So the only way we can know that something needs to be done sometimes is for the users to let us know, because we don't have the ability to get out to all 163 county channels to do any kind of regular inspection on those. Next slide, please. So this year's grant request, we submitted 4 channels for consideration by DNR. At this point, 3 of them are actually have been recommended to move forward in the state budget. Some of that still needs to go back then for DNR to confirm that they have funding for all 3, which we will wait to finalize, and we'll make adjustments to the budgets if something happens after that. But Marley Creek, Asquith Creek, and Upper Magathie River had been recommended to be included in the program. Next slide. So the next 3 slides will just be a quick outline of those channels that were included in DNR's recommendation to the state budget process. This is the Marley Creek dredging, which is kind of the upper end of the main channel there. Next, Asquith Creek is a shorter channel, but includes some larger peer groups, back in the back community groups that make the number of users pretty high for a channel that's small. And then next slide is the Upper Magathie River, which extends from where we finished or are finishing the Lower Magathie dredging up farther north into the channel, into the headwaters there. Next slide. So the other program that is showing FY27 funding beyond the usual is the South County Dredging Strategic Plan. We originally in FY25 had the construction for the locations for phase 1 to actually place material at, where we were extending some of the areas lost to erosion and other issues. That work is expected to begin this upcoming winter. and that included $700,000 of a Maryland Waterway Improvement Grant for that work. In FY27, we're showing 1.66 million. That was in there primarily, or the initial funding for that shown in FY27 was about $650,000 to do the fine grading of the dredge material that we placed there this winter, to actually create the habitat that we're looking for out there. In addition, this winter, the Resilience Authority was awarded a $1 million grant by the National Coastal Resilience Fund to apply to this project, which will allow us to start the design of sites 2 and 3, since we're already through number 1. So that is moving the timeline up on those sites a little quicker than we had scheduled, which was based on funding, so that hopefully that'll help keep this project moving forward. And at the next time we have dredge material ready to place, sites 2 and 3 will be ready to accept it. Next slide. Just as the little bit of background on that, these are the 5 sites that were identified to be used for dredge material. Site 1 in the north is the one that work will start on just north of Broadwater Creek this winter. And then sites 2 and 3 that we received the grant for down there between Broadwater and Carrs Creek. As the time moves on here, that's where the design work will start happening next year with those grant funds. Next slide. And then this is just the general list of the projects with changed or additional funding in the program. Most of these are multi-years. There are a couple give back projects, including the Sloop Eli Long Cove retrofit project, which was basically a stream restoration that was finished this last year. The other thing I wanted to point out at the very bottom, the FY26 dredging program, we're actually showing the give back of 2.6 million. That is because last year DNR had approved the Marley and Asquith Creeks in the grant program, specifically through the budget process, and then in about July or August of last year notified us they didn't have enough funding to start either of those, so they were removing them from the program. So what we've done is taken the money out of the FY26 program here, and then those are 2 of the 3 that you saw in the FY27 request that have been approved again. So we hope to get back on track with getting the work done on those 2, plus the Upper Magathie work. And so we'll wait for final determination from DNR to confirm that all 3 of those will be included. It'll be based on how many other projects they're funding and what other projects in other jurisdictions are included in their program as well. That is the extent of my presentation on the dredging program. If you have any questions there.
All right. Checking. I don't see any flags. So
Okay.
I think we're good there, Mr. Braun.
Okay.
So
Thank
continue.
you.
Whoever's next.
Next up is Eric Michelson for Watershed Protection and Restoration.
Thanks. Eric Michelson, Deputy Director, Department of Public Works, Bureau of Watershed Protection and Restoration, presenting on the B class. Next slide, please, Beth. So in summary, we only have 1 new B class project request this year, which is our water quality utility project, which I'll describe a little bit more detail later on. And we have a preliminary FY27 request, or a 27 request, that is $6 million below our recurring program in terms of what we had projected. This is primarily all construction phase increases associated with existing projects that are in design and permitting. And among other things, this request continues to provide funding for the county's grant program through the Chesapeake Bay Trust and our full delivery of water quality improvements program, which engages the private sector. Next slide, please, Beth. So the first two projects, B55-1600 and B55-1700, are our infrastructure projects. Our culvert and closed storm drain rehab project, we're asking for $8 million as programmed, and this is essentially repair and replacement of existing closed storm drain systems throughout the county. We are proceeding methodically with that work in coordination with our Bureau of Highways, trying to coordinate with regards to resurfacing projects and that sort of thing. Our emergency storm drain project is requesting $4 million. And again, this is to respond to issues as they arise with regards to that collection and conveyance network that are unforeseen and otherwise being responded to. Our B55-1800 storm drainage and stormwater infrastructure is a countywide project where we're asking for $2.1 million. This is to pick up projects that come under our radar with regards to water quality opportunities or flood conveyance opportunities, and to be able to initiate design and permitting on those projects as they come up. Our B56-1100 WPRP Restoration Grant Program. This is the $1.2 million that we provide to the Chesapeake Bay Trust each year for projects executed by local nonprofit organizations that the county is able to claim permit credit for, and where these NGOs are helping us in our overall water quality goals. B56-8300 is our public-private performance and water quality improvements project. We're asking for $2 million. This is about what we've asked for the past several years. It's been a program that's been very popular and successful in terms of engaging the private sector in conducting work to improve the water quality in local waterways, and has gotten a lot of attention, and continues to be something that we'd like to see part of our portfolio. B55-3800, this is Patapsco Tidal Outfall 3. This is Back Creek up in Glen Burnie near Ordnance Road. We're asking for $2.2 million for construction. That project's getting close to being ready to go, and we'd like to be able to move along with that. B55-4800, this is Patapsco Tidal Stream Restoration 7. This is Marley Creek, part of a constellation of projects up around the Marley Station Mall. There's a number of segments that we're restoring through that area. We're asking for $3 million for construction towards that overall effort. B55-5400, Patapsco non-tidal outfalls. This is for $800,000 for construction of our stream and wetland project on the campus of the Maritime Institute up in Linthicum. So we're looking forward to moving ahead with that project. B55-6800, a Little Patuxent Outfall 02. This is for Towser's Branch. We're asking for a little bit over $2 million for the construction of that project over in the area around Odenton. B57-1400, Patuxent Outfalls. This is for $450,000 to continue the design and permitting of a project on the campus of Crofton High School. It's adjacent to county parks. We're working with both the school system and the park property, or the recreation and parks, to conduct that project, which is it will repair a significant area of erosion on the campus at this point. B57-1600, Severn Outfalls. This is $3.4 million almost for Upper Cowhide Branch. This is the tributary that runs from the Annapolis Mall behind the Anne Arundel Medical Center down to Medical Parkway. And this work goes a little bit below Medical Parkway as well. So we're looking forward to moving forward with that project. B57-4000, Naholes Road Outfall. This is for $565,000 for the design work associated with this project in Severn Run. It's adjacent to a number of projects that the county as well as SHA have conducted in the Severn Run natural area, which is a DNR property. B58-2500, Clark Station Road Resilience Project. This is $800,000 for the construction of that project. That project has expanded in scope a little bit since it was initiated. There's some surrounding drainage issues in the community of Cedarhurst that we've incorporated into the design and construction, and that will get constructed simultaneously with the work along Clark Station Road itself. B55 8600, Cattail Creek Stream and Wetland. This is $200,000 for design work associated with that project. This project feeds the Magathie River. It's behind Oak Hill Elementary School in Seminole Park, and an area that needs some significant intervention. And then finally, B59 4600. This is the water quality utility project that I mentioned. We're asking for $6.2 million. This is a project that allows us to coordinate with our Bureau of Utilities and Bureau of Engineering on projects that are nominally created or initiated to protect sewer infrastructure that's exposed in these stream valleys as a result of erosion. We've been able to coordinate with them on a number of projects where we are able to expand the scope of the project to have these projects meet water quality goals, and I think to get a more durable and sustainable protection of that sewer infrastructure as a result. So this will be funding 2 projects that we're coordinating with them on and that are getting very close to going into construction. Next slide, please, Beth. This is an example of a project actually where we coordinated with utilities, where we did not necessarily have the same sort of cost share apparatus in place, although we've done that in the past on a project by project basis. This is Marley Creek Green Branch, just basically near Old Mill, Millersville area. And in the photo on the left, you can see the exposed sewer crossing that had been in place for a number of years. And was exposed, and then we were able to basically restore the stream valley in that area, build the system up, permanently protect that sewer infrastructure, among other things. The whole project itself is probably 2,500 to 3,000 linear feet, so it's much bigger than just the protection of that infrastructure. But incorporating that into this is a key component, and we think it's a good way to both to protect our infrastructure in a longer range and to defray costs both on the utility and stormwater side in terms of these projects going forward. Next slide, please, Beth. I just wanted to highlight a couple of grant projects funded through our program with the Chesapeake Bay Trust. These are 2 North County projects, Chestnut Hill Cove Stream and Wetland Restoration up off Nabbs Creek, and then Elizabeth's Landing Living Shoreline Project. One of the things, especially in terms of environmental impacts in the grant programs, we've had a lot of interest in the sort of central county corridor, Annapolis, Arnold, Seminole Park. And so we've been making a deliberate effort to try to engage folks, particularly in North County as well, to get engaged in this. And we have had a number of really cool projects go forward. So we've got a pretty good distribution there, and are always looking to work with communities that are interested in pursuing this kind of work, particularly on HOA property or on shorelines that might be vulnerable. So next slide, please, Beth. That's the end of my presentation, but I'm happy to take any questions from the council if you all have any.
I do not see any flags. I just want to say, just like with Rec and Parks, it's always amazing to hear how many projects y'all have going on, touching everything all over the county. It really is incredible. So I'm grateful for all of them to have on there. So, all right, I don't see any questions. So next up.
It's Rhodey Holdhouse with the Solid Waste Fund projects.
Good morning. Rhodey Holdhouse, Deputy Director, Public Works, talking about the N-Class or the Solid Waste Management Projects and the capital program for FY 27 to 2032. Next slide, please. So I won't spend a lot of time on some of these slides that we've talked about before, but we're really trying to use the capital improvement program as a connection between our daily operations and our long-term strategies that are expressed in our solid waste management plan. And that includes developing our facilities over time in response to changes in law and regulation, certainly ensuring capacity is at the forefront of what we do, and also ensuring the life of our support infrastructure in the enterprise, which includes buildings, roads, and other specialty equipment and facilities, and also caring for landfill units that have closed over time, including our landfills in South County and Glen Burnie. The next slide, please. I just wanted to mention Plan 2040. Our goals are under Healthy Communities 9, and I do crosswalk the project request to the goals. I won't spend a lot of time reading those. So next slide, please. Again, our program drivers are really, and this is not in any particular order, but meeting regulatory requirements, obviously, ensuring capacity, extending the life of infrastructure, and then also making enhancements along the way, in particular for customers or programs or emerging needs. Next slide, please. So as a high-level summary, our FY27 department request is 1.4 million, which is a $36,000 decrease from the council-approved program for FY27, and I'll talk more about each of the projects in particular. On the entire capital program, it's a $105 million program over 6 years, which is a $54 million increase. We have one new N-class project in the 6-year program, and the increase is mainly due to new project requests, but also construction phase funding added to prior approved projects. Next slide, please. So again, I won't go through this chart because I will go through the individual projects, but we're asking for a slight reduction in FY27 from the approved program, mainly because of givebacks for a completed project. Next slide, please. And on the 6-year program, again, I'm trying to program the significant increases for the out years. So again, using the capital improvement program as a strategy of putting points or waypoints on our map. We'll talk about some of the out years and some of the requests that I'm making. Next slide, please. And again, these are the 7 or 8 projects that add up to that $54 million increase in the capital program. The next slide, please. So the first one is, I'm always happy to talk about this because we do quite a bit of planning here in the Bureau of Waste Management Services just to stay ahead of things. We're asking for $56,000 to replenish this project for FY27. This is a pay-go funded project. And we really don't have any specific emerging needs at this point. Some of the things we're working on right now is updating our administrative plat for the landfill property and some of the adjacent properties we've purchased over time. And we just finished a study for a new and expanded recycling center, which is a capacity type of issue. So again, the $56,000 request would be for emerging needs. Next slide, please. Solid waste renovations on page 342 and 526-900 is a multi-year project, and we're asking for 1.44 million consistent with the program for the new program year, which is FY 2032. Next slide, please. This is just a list of all the solid waste renovation child projects. So we have a master project and then child project accounts. So you sort of get the depth and breadth of all the different types of infrastructure we care for. Next slide, please. N581800 is Millersville landfill main entrance upgrades on page 343. This is a completed project. So again, we did some turn lane improvements on Burns Crossing Road to allow some better customer queuing and customer movement through the corridor without interrupting through traffic. We also added I think one of the major points is that we added a slip lane for county vehicles, including, fire, police, public works vehicles that are using the fueling station at this location, so they can bypass the customer queue, which is an improvement for everyone. And along with that came stormwater management and some other roadside improvements like fencing, lighting, and signage. And we finished the project, so that's great. And we're de-obligating $1 million in FY27, which is the real reduction in FY27's request. Next slide, please. N581900 is the Millersville landfill cell 9 landfill gas design and construction project on page 344. There are no scope or timing changes or changes in cost. So this project provides for the phased development of the landfill gas collection and conveyance system, which is really just a system of horizontal and vertical wells and piping and manifolding that move the gas to the landfill gas to electricity facility. And we have to do this in phases, just as we develop the landfill in phases. As each new phase of the landfill is developed, we deploy the horizontal and vertical wells within 5 years of waste placement. Next slide, please. And 584200 is maintenance of closed landfill on page 345. We are doing some maintenance on cell 8, which was capped about 10 years ago now. This project was set up a few years ago to use the proceeds from the Solid Waste Assurance Fund for post-closure care. So again, the Solid Waste Assurance Fund is a fund that was set up back in 1994. We make an annual contribution from the Solid Waste Operating Fund to the Solid Waste Assurance Fund. And the theory is that today's users of the landfill will forward fund the future cost of closing and caring for the landfill after it closes. So it's working as intended. But with some very heavy rainstorms in the last couple of years, we've had some erosion, and we need to repair that. What you see in the graphic there is the project manual for the repair project, which will be going out to bid very soon. We're asking for $920,000 in additional funding for FY27 based on the latest cost estimates for identified work. And again, this wouldn't be operating fund PAYGO or new borrowing. It's actually coming from a dedicated fund source, which is the Solid Waste Assurance Fund. Next slide, please. N590800 is the Millersville Landfill and Resource Recovery Facility Maintenance Building Upgrades on page 346. And this is really just a true up, no changes in the project timing or scope, but we are asking for $11,000 in FY28 and $44,000 more in FY29 related to overhead. Next slide, please. N590900 is Millersville Landfill Subcell 9.4 Design and Construction on page 347. Again, this is the phased construction of the cell 9 disposal area. Cell 9, subcell 9.4 is the fourth phase. We are already programmed for design funding in FY29 and construction funding in FY2030. This request would reduce design funding by $54,000 and increase construction funding by $1.4 million based on latest cost estimates. Next slide, please. N594200 is the leachate pretreatment plant, which I'm calling a regulatory project on page 348. So I'm sure everyone has heard, and I've talked about this before, but the per and polyfluoroalkyl substances that are an emerging concern in a number of areas, including wastewater. And our landfill wastewater is sent to the Patuxent Wastewater Treatment Plant or Patuxent Water Reclamation Facility, which is also a DPW asset. We are going to need to redesign our pre-treatment process, which is the first treatment process before we send that water through the sanitary sewer to our public water reclamation facility. EPA will be putting out new pre-treatment requirements for landfills, and their target is 2028 and had been 2027. But we will need to design our process to meet those requirements and also protect our water reclamation facility. So we are asking for $4.1 million for construction in FY 2032 for this project. The next project is N594300, which is the Millersville Water Transmission Main. Again, I'm calling this a contingency project. It's categorized under regulatory, but this really reestablishes a contingency plan project that we had in place in the 1990s. And we had never needed to build the project, so it was dropped out of the capital program and it was dropped out of the Master and Water Sewer Plan. I'm asking, again, using the CIP as a strategy and putting this out as a placeholder. I'm asking for this project funding. Design's already been funded. I'm asking to put a placeholder in, earmark for $25 million for construction in FY 2032 if it's required. Maryland has a pretty aggressive PFAS action plan, and again, it covers solid waste facilities, covers surface water, groundwater, and wastewater. And those things are being studied, and MDE will be formulating regulations in response to those findings. So this project would extend public water to the area surrounding the Millersville landfill if it becomes required. As we sit here today, it's not required, but again, I think it's an important enough idea and a big enough request that we certainly don't want to surprise anyone. So I want to put it at the tail end of the capital program, and we can talk about it each year, whether it continues to be needed or not. Next slide, please. And N595100 is our only new project request. It's for a new public drop-off facility. I guess some exciting things are going to be happening in the recycling area over the next few years. If everyone has tracked it, the Maryland Enhanced Producer Responsibility for Packaging Act has passed. I guess it was passed in 2025, and new regulations are actually promulgated and become effective next week. So May 25th of 2026. That will shift some of the cost of raising the funds for recycling programs to producers and provide a new revenue source for municipal and local government programs. So we want to be at the forefront of finding a ways to leverage that money into our model for revenue and affordability. But one of the things we've been looking at is that we've had the same locations for over 40 years and the same drop-off locations for our residents, our customers. A lot has changed here in Anne Arundel County in 40 years. Back then, we had probably less than 300,000 people, and now we have over 600,000 souls. So as part of our efforts, we've looked at a couple things. Number one, how can we eke out capacity from our existing facilities and do a better job managing customers in queue and all those things that go along with that to be more effective with the 3 drop-off facilities we currently have. And then beyond that, operational improvements, what sort of infrastructure improvements could we make at those facilities, and the potential for a 4th facility. So this new project is a request for a placeholder for a potential 4th facility. We're asking for land acquisition funding in FY31 and design funding in FY2032. Next slide, please. And these are just some projects that don't have any requests in the program other than prior approved. So I included them just for completeness. But we do have N535400 landfill buffer expansion, and we are still targeting, don't need any additional funds, but we're still targeting 2 residential properties on our eastern boundary that we'd like to acquire over time. And we continue to talk with those property owners, and hopefully they'll sell to us when the time is right. Next slide, please. And then N56400 Millersville landfill subcell 92. Again, I'll call that a success story. We finished that project in March of 2021. However, the MDE permit process that you probably all remember that we're in to expand the capacity in Cell 9 is funded in this project. So we're moving steadily through that MDE permitting process as of May of this year. And hopefully, knock wood, we will have that expansion permit, which will allow us to go higher on the current footprint of Cell 9 sometime later this calendar year. That's my goal and hope. Next slide, please. And N578800 Millersville landfill subcell 93. Again, no additional funding requested. Construction on this was substantially completed late last calendar year, and the initial waste placement activities started in December 2025. You sort of heard Karen mention that in the operating budget overview. The first phase of filling of a new landfill cell is to use the select waste, or what we call soft trash, as the first layer over the new liner components so that we don't damage those new liner components. And then after that first layer is placed, customers can begin using the area, and that actually just started this spring. So that's another success story. On time, and found a new contractor that built that project for a lot less than expected. So that's triple win there. Next slide, please. And that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the N-Class this morning.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any questions? Ms. Fiedler.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Rhodey, for that presentation and for your continued responsiveness to constituent cases that come from District 5. I wanted to touch on slide 18 in your presentation, the Millersville Water Transmission Main. Does the county regularly test for soil contamination in the area of the landfill, or is it only on request by property owner?
Yeah, so we have a network of groundwater monitoring wells, and that has grown over time, but it's on the property boundary, and then outside in areas beyond our property boundary on private properties where we have easements to do groundwater testing. So what we have, again, the history of the landfill is it opened in 1975. Regulations were much different. So everything the county did was always, according to the regulations of the time.
Yep.
But from 1975 to the 1980s, when the earliest part of the facility was developed, the requirements for landfill liner construction weren't nearly what they are today. So nowadays it's a clay layer, it's multiple layers of heavy duty high density polyethylene liners, and a system for pumping liquid wastewater out of the bottom of the landfill cells. That didn't exist until 1992. So before that, it was more a passive system with a clay liner and not much more. So there has been some impacts to the very shallowest groundwater local to the property, and that's why we got into this monitoring program once upon a time, and including we've probably replaced about 40 of the shallowest wells of our neighbors over the last 35 years.
Wow. Okay.
So now it's maybe been one or two or none, depending on the year. And when I say impacts, the impacts are detections of things, not necessarily exceedances of groundwater or of drinking water standards. So it's been very protective of human health, the way the county has implemented the program since the 90s, which is good. So every 6 months, there's full service monitoring of all the groundwater, and that's reported to the Maryland Department of the Environment, to the Anne Arundel County Health Department, and the residents who have monitoring wells on their properties get those results as well. And again, they're not drinking out of the monitoring wells. They've been provided with wells that are in a deeper aquifer that's been unaffected by anything. So I think it's all a contingency, but the county does have a contingency plan, and it's been approved by the state back in 1995 that says, you have to provide clean drinking water. And I guess if the strategies that we've been pursuing, it's basically tiers. If well replacement is no longer a fit, then the ultimate is public water. So we had provided that in this master water and sewer plan and a capital program project to do that, but it has never been required. I'm suggesting that it's a big enough ask that we should put it on the radar screen and track it that way. I understand that there's, it sort of takes away $25 million of capacity for other projects in the affordability analysis, but I think it's worth it. So I think, the next administration, the next council, the next me should know that there's a placeholder out there for this project if needed.
I appreciate that. And Madam Chair, may I ask a follow-up question?
Yes.
Okay. I'm glad you mentioned the regulation, because in the slide, it is actually underlined if required by regulation. Is there, knowing that we've already replaced 40 shallow wells, at what point do we as a county say we're not going to wait for the requirement we're now having to replace even deeper wells. Now is the time to amend our master water and sewer plan for the area. What is that tipping point? Do we even know what that tipping point is?
Yeah, I don't think we know what that tipping point is, because we've literally been watching this for decades, and again have sort of selected if it's detected, then we offer a replacement, not a necessarily an exceedance of a drinking water standard, which is again very protective.
Right.
But I think more the issue would be if these PFAS requirements drive more of a wholesale change, like if and I'm not saying they will, but it's a new enough thing, and the levels of detection and requirements for a public drinking water system are so low. They're in parts per trillion, like 4 parts per trillion, which is minuscule. It's a medicine dropper, less than a medicine dropper in an Olympic-sized pool. So it's very low, very low. And there are some, maybe signs that EPA might be, changing how it looks at some of these things as well. But in any event, I think it's really protective, because we don't have. I would much prefer to answer these questions now in a quiet moment than to come to a council in the future and say we need to do this like now. Our approved plan says we will act within a year to install public water, which again would be a challenge. And so this at least puts that pin in the map. And again, the network of monitoring, I think is substantial, and the community that's around us, understands and has known about this for decades. So I think they're allies in this. But if there was a more widespread problem with PFAS, and a deeper well wasn't an issue, wasn't an option, that might be a trigger, right? If what we've been doing couldn't work because of that reason, then now the good news is, we continue to learn. Like I said, in every 6 months we learn more, but we haven't seen any evidence of the PFAS in the deeper aquifer that we're using. So that's good.
Okay. Definitely not my wheelhouse, but I'm glad it's yours, and you did a great job of explaining that, and I appreciate the information. I might follow up offline with more questions, but this is very helpful.
Happy to take questions.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right. I don't see any other flags from council members. So.
All right. So we're going to have Chris Murphy up with, he'll be going over the water and wastewater projects.
Yeah. Can you guys see me? Just want to make sure. Okay.
Yep. We see you, and we see the screen.
Great. Thanks for having me. Again, I'm Chris Murphy. I am the engineer administrator for utility engineering. I'm going to go over all the water and wastewater projects today for you. This is just sort of a general overview, sort of get you used to the idea of, I'll say, the size of the appropriation and the appropriateness of the appropriation. This is just sort of looking at some of our conveyance infrastructure. So for our water sewer piping, we sort of estimate there's about a value of about $4.1 billion in the ground. We try to replace it on a 75-year life cycle. So it's a 1.5% every year, trying to replace that. If in order to do that, you would need to replace about $62 million. You'd have about $62 million worth of projects. And our appropriation for FY27, when you look at all the different projects, it's about $60 million. Similar, you can look at this again with pump stations and things like that. And then the last one is water storage tank painting. But as you know, our infrastructure did not grow like sort of on a straight line, so we can't replace it on a straight line. So these are sort of reflective on where we should be, but I think our system is approaching middle age. A lot of it was built in the 70s and 80s. So 40, 50 years old. So we're really starting to hit that sweet spot where spending increases are probably going to go up. We have a project, we're doing a complete overhaul right now of our asset management program. And this is definitely, this overhaul is definitely going to help us out on capital project planning for funding. where we can be more proactive than reactive, trying to get ahead of the curve to understand what it is. We've been in this project now for about 2 years, and we should really start seeing results over the next year or so. You'll notice in some of our project planning projects that I will talk about a little bit, there is funding in there for that asset management program. So you can go to the next slide. Okay, so I'm only going to highlight a small set of the sewer projects. Just to go off what Karen was saying earlier about the number of projects, I looked it up real quick. We have 242 ongoing sewer projects, and I'll show this later on, but we have 159 water projects. So all over 400 projects right now, active projects that my department is handling, my group's handling for the utility class. So I'm going to go through these are the ones that sort of either had large request changes in FY27 or the total overall project number changed too. So these are I'm going to go through a slide on each one of these. So only one new project this year, which is the North County Sewer Division project, which the divergence project, which I'm sure you guys are aware of. It's part of the Baltimore City moratorium, and I'll cover that as the last slide in this set on wastewater. Go ahead, next project, next slide. Okay, so the first one is our what used to be the X764200. With the upgrade to Oracle, we've changed all the X, Y, and Z projects now. They will either have a corresponding S or a W. So same project last year as X764-200, but now it's called S764-200. I'm going to have to get used to saying that. But this is our wastewater project planning. We do a lot of studies in here and a lot of sort of planning and evaluation. Like I talked about the sewer asset management plan that we have going on. This is where our water program is. We're also doing I&I studies with the Broadwater system. And we're also doing a sewer utility benchmarking study. This is actually a fantastic study that we're reaping some rewards from. This is where we went and we looked at all of our treatment plants, see how they're operating on cost effectiveness, electrical energy usage, chemical usage, all those things, see how they compare to each other. And then we compared them to peer institutions in other municipalities, other places, to see how we're operating, look for ways that we can be more cost efficient and reduce our costs down there. And also looked at ways that new technologies we might be able to pick up that could really greatly reduce our operating costs. So that one, we currently have a lot of evaluations going on with that one. So next project, or next slide, I should say next slide. Okay, so the Broadneck WRF upgrade S797900. It's on page 368. We are in the last part of this project. This was a project that was, we originally did the ENR project. ENR actually allowed us to re-rate our treatment plant up to 8 MGD from 6 MGD, so we can handle future growth there. We had a number of projects that we needed to get done in order to have the plant ready. This is the last upgrade that we need to get done, which is the grid system improvement project. It's set to be bid out actually next week. It's a spring of 2026, and so next week it's supposed to be out next Thursday, I think. So out for bid. Next slide. The S800,000. This is our state highway relocation project. This is for sewer and water projects. We're asking for $19.2 million in FY27, $4 million in FY28, $4 million in FY29, and then $2 million ongoing in FY30. These are projects that state highway, when they're going to be doing an upgrade, maybe they're adding a lane or they're going to be repaving. Often we'll have infrastructure that is in the roadway, and it's best if we need to upgrade those facilities to get it done at the same time. Often we don't know exactly the bounds of the project until we actually get into the design. So that's kind of why there's a variation. The 19.2 is actually based on an actual project. The other ones are more placeholders based on the number of projects that we know that the state has let us know about, but their plans are nowhere near finalized about what's exactly impacted. So these are more just the placeholders for the out years there. Next slide. S802300. This is our WRF infrastructure upgrade retro. This is for smaller, I'll call them smaller projects at the treatment plants. They're not really less costly anymore. They're all still decent. They're all usually a few $1 million for each one of these. There's for some small blower replacements. There's for some switch bank systems, load banks. The Annapolis odor control project is in here. I know we had a lot of talk about that in previous years. We're asking for $12.2 million in FY27, $13.8 million in FY28, and then $3.3 million ongoing from FY29 onward. This is a multi-year project. Go ahead, next slide. S807600. It's our Piney Orchard SPS and force main project. This project involves us constructing a new force main and new pump station, and then we would decommission the existing Piney Orchard plant. That flow would go to our Patuxent facility, and also the load would also be transferred to the Patuxent facility. Interesting thing, we had an electrical fire here in May of last year. Required us to actually take the plant offline, do an emergency temporary bypass. We worked fantastically with Rex and Parks and school system to get this temporary bypass in, and we did it in record DPW time. We got this thing done in about 4 months, and we were able to install a temporary line down the West B&A trail, down and tying into our force main down there by down by Two Rivers. So that was just for a temporary connection point, and what we're basically going to be doing in the future is building a permanent force main and permanent pump station. Right now, everything's sort of just jerry-rigged to work for the meantime, and then after we're completed with that, then we will decommission the treatment plant. Okay, next slide. Okay, our managed aquifer recharge project. This is one where we're looking at taking our wastewater effluent, treating it to drinking water standards, and then putting it back in the ground. We have sort of narrowed the scope just to sort of focus on those technologies that we need to understand how the advanced treatment process works. We actually have a small pilot facility, Patuxent, which will be moving down to Broadneck in the near future. And then also we are funding a groundwater modeling and monitoring out of this project too. And as you know, it's essential to our drinking water system. We get 100% of our groundwater out of 100% of our water supply from groundwater. And so it's really imperative that we understand our groundwater system. So this looks at what we're going to focus in on right now is sort of just narrowing that down to look at the processes that we need to do to treat the water, and then also look at how the geochemistry and the geohydrology of the groundwater, so that we get a better understanding of everything. So, okay, next slide. Minor system upgrades. Okay, so minor system upgrades. There's a number of mobile home communities. Most of them are in the southern part of the county, down near Wason's Corner, Boone's Estates, Lions Creek, Maryland Manor, Patuxent Mobile Estates, Wason's Woods. And then there's a couple of them, Summer Hill and Holiday Estates, that are in Annapolis and the Patuxent area. Often, a good number of these, not everyone, has had difficulties in their treatment of wastewater, and they've had issues with their wastewater discharge. They need to be upgraded. The thought here is that the county could take them over, and there should be substantial funding through the Bay Restoration Fund. But Bay Restoration Fund, we've had discussions with MDE, and that they think that these could be funded to 75 to 80% with Bay Restoration Fund for the upgrades. We continue to meet with the property owners, and we're continuing to meet with MDE to get this project moving forward. Next thing we need to do is to get our negotiated agreements with the property owners and get permits in hand. Next slide. Next one is our biosolids facility. So this is a $112.7 million project estimated currently. FY27 request is $15.5 million, $6.5 million FY28. $5.7 million FY29. $200,000 in FY30 and FY31, $67.8 million. Biosolids is the material left over from the wastewater treatment process. It's the solids. Typically, right now they are treated with once they're dewatered, they're treated with lime stabilization, and then we truck them out of all of our different treatment plants. It's a Class B product. Farmers put them on their fields, and they grow things like straw and hay and grass and things of that nature. There has been recently there's been legislation and regulation on merging contaminants like PFAS on the use of biosolids on agricultural land. MDE recently had some regulations a couple of years ago on that. The biosolids project. Go to the next slide. It goes in a little more detail. Yeah. So with all that, the regulation, not knowing where we can place the biosolids, got a long-term issue as far as not knowing where we can put the material, and it's material that we're making every day. Every day we're making 195 tons of these biosolids. Right now, most of it gets trucked outside of the state, gets sent somewhere. We're concerned that we're not going to be able to I'll say move it in the future. This biosolids facility that we're looking at would greatly reduce the volume by 90%. So we would reduce it down to 10 to 20 tons a day. It'll allow us to have operational efficiencies. It'll be a cost reducer because of potentially with the low volume reduction there. We'll also be able to make an environmentally friendlier product. It's a product that's called biochar. We can use it. There's a different number of uses you can use it for. You can use it as a constituent in making a concrete. You can use it for filtering. You can use it as a soil amendment. There's a bunch of different potential uses for it. But I think the number one thing for us is to basically be able to reduce that volume down and also potentially reduce some of our costs down. And then also we're creating that more environmentally friendly product that will have more surety about where we can put the material. So we've focused in on putting it at our Cox Creek facility. If you want to go to the next slide. Cox Creek actually creates about 40 to 45% of our biosolids. We're focusing in on putting the initial biosolids facility there. And part of that is going to require some of the reworking of some of the area at Cox Creek. For instance, the area in green there is our existing equalization storage, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. But our existing equalization storage it's actually part of the original plant that was there. It was repurposed during ENR as sort of our EQ facility, but that tankage is aging and it needs to get replaced. And so we're actually going to be looking at moving that over to where the orange box is, which is also the same location where we'll be doing our septic facility. Then we'll be constructing a new biosolids and new dewatering facility for this biosolids facility here. Also one of the other things with our biosolids project is that the technology that we're looking at using, which is called pyrolysis, also called gasification. One of the major things it does, and it didn't point out before, was that it destroys the PFAS bonds. It destroys the PFAS by destroying their bonds, and so it makes it a more environmentally friendly product in that way. So, if you want to go to the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about our Cox Creek septic facility improvements. I noticed there on the past slide that orange and yellow area. So, in looking at how we would construct a Cox Creek septic facility, it was noted that the EQ tank, which needs to get replaced, and the septic facility could actually share some of the same infrastructure with pumping facilities. And also, in order to build the tankage, you kind of have to do it concurrently with the septic facility. So it makes sense to actually put that part of the project together. So for FY28, we're currently in design. FY28, we're asking for $52.5 million. Most of that increase is, like I said, is to construct the EQ tank associated with this. Next slide. Okay, so S810 600 is our WRF aeration system improvements. We're asking for $766,000 in FY27, $144,000 in FY28, $31 million in FY29, $4.2 million in FY30 for a total project cost of $41.8 million. This is a project. This is all our aeration systems in our largest facilities. It's like Annapolis, Cox Creek, Broadneck, all are starting to age, show their age. They're at the end of their useful life, and they need to get replaced. And that's the I guess that's the reason for this project. Aeration is critically important in wastewater treatment. Aeration is basically we push oxygen into the tankage, allows the bugs to grow and eat up all the good stuff that's in there, and end up turning it all into biosolids. But it also cleans the water. So let's go to the next slide. All right, this is the last slide. This is I know we've had a lot of discussions about the Baltimore City moratorium. This is our project. It's called North County Sewer Diversions. This is one of a number of projects that we're doing for the Baltimore City sewer service area moratorium. So this is focusing in on those diversions. And we have $6.5 million currently in there for FY27 for design of new essentially new pump stations, and then $50.4 million for the pump stations and the force main. And basically, we're going to look at taking the diversions C and D, which is shown on this map, taking that flow and pumping it down to into our Patuxent sewer service area, which is just below it. We have a number of different projects we're working on for the Baltimore City moratorium. We have a Baltimore County diversions study, which is what the study ongoing. We're developing. We have an I&I project going on. We have about $21 million not listed here of basic projects within this moratorium area where we're doing like sewer ladder replacements, manhole rehabs, things of that, sewer relinings, things of that nature, that are also typical things that we do in this area. So I think that's it. Is everything that I wanted to cover on wastewater. I don't know if I think the next slide just says questions, I think. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there, see if there's any questions on the wastewater projects that I have.
Ms. Fiedler. Now, unmute yourself, Amanda.
Sorry, it's going around. It was only a matter of time. Thank you for that presentation. If I missed the slide on this, I do apologize, but I was interested in the update on the managed aquifer recharge. I think that's the pilot we discussed last budget cycle.
Yeah. So what we're focusing in on the technology. So we're going to be moving the facility from Patuxent down to Broadneck. And we're going to be moving it down there. We're going to be testing the Broadneck water at the Broadneck treatment plant. And then also we're going to be adding like a reverse osmosis system into it. That was part of the state's recommendations in their legislation. So we're going to be testing that out there. We're also funding in that project the groundwater modeling and associated geochemistry analysis associated with that, just to understand what's going on with the geohydrology and geochemistry of our aquifers. With the project still moving forward, so we're moving the understanding the technology forward, but we're not currently yet requesting funds for the full build out or the demonstration facility.
Okay.
I just add to that answer, if it's okay. So we are slowing down on MAR because we have, as you saw from our capital program outlook, we have to focus on those projects that have to get done now. And as you know, MAR was more of a long-term picture, something that we need to start thinking about now, but we don't need to build it right now. It's more of a 20, maybe 30 year outlook. So we've had to kind of slow our roll. And right now we're doing more of study. We're not planning to construct anything for the next 5 years, at least, if not longer than that, just because this biosolids project is taking up quite a bit of our funding. And we want to be responsible with what we're doing.
I appreciate that. And totally, the question was more wanting to keep tabs on where we were in the process. I know that it is definitely a multi-year project and it's a big lift. So I just appreciate the update on the timeline.
Thanks for your interest in it.
Yeah.
Mr. Folke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All right. This can be to Mr. Murphy or Director Henry or anybody else that you want. So I guess just from a philosophical standpoint, what I want to understand is the North County sewer improvements that you're talking about that are stemming out that last project. So obviously this wasn't something that we in Anne Arundel County created. I think we all agree on that. We should have probably seen some of this, whatever. I'm not pointing fingers at that. I'm just saying it is what it is. But now the taxpayers for the entirety of the county are being asked to foot the bill of $50 million for this new project. And then you said there may be another 20 million in sort of other places and things working on. So I'm thinking roughly $80 million worth of money is going to be spent by the taxpayers to fix a problem Baltimore sort of foisted on us and that we weren't necessarily seeing coming. And we're doing it so that we can increase sewage capacity, so that we can build more things and bring more people in. And the taxpayers today are paying for that for the people tomorrow. And so they're sort of subsidizing that growth and that development. So that's at least the way I see it. And what I'm asking from a philosophy standpoint or from a theory standpoint, why did DPW get to the position or not, even not DPW, why did the administration get to the position to say, this is what we need to do? And I'll give you a couple like strings that you can pull on if you say to me, this is the reason. If you looked at it and said, hey, our litigation costs from shutting down capacity are going to exceed this because we're going to get sued by developers in the pipeline or something like that, then I'd be interested to know what that assessment was and what that analysis was. If you said we're going to generate X number of dollars in additional tax revenue that's going to far dwarf any investment that we're making, I'd be interested in what that is too. So I guess that's how I'm looking at the framework and trying to understand how are we justifying to our taxpayers today that we're going to spend upwards of, sounds like about $80 million to fix a problem that we don't necessarily agree is even a fair problem for us to have to fix. And the reason we're doing it is to accommodate more growth and development, when one of the things that I know all of us hear constantly, I mean, I heard it at my dentist appointment this morning. One of the guys at the front was talking to me about growth and development and concerns up in the exact corridor where Cox Creek is. So I'll leave it there, but I welcome your feedback from a philosophy or sort of a policy standpoint, both from DPW and if you say, look, this was DPW in conjunction with the admin or it was admin, that's fair too. I'm not trying to zing you. I just want to understand it. Thank you.
Okay, this is Karen Henry. I'm the Director of Public Works. So let me start with that. Taxpayers are not paying for this project and ratepayers are not paying for this project. It is a growth project. And when I'm talking about the diversion part of the project, that is considered to be a growth project that's paid for by capital facility connection charges. The capital facility connection charges and the other fees that we use that fund our debt service are mixed together, but we track, this is a growth project. It's funded by CFCCs, and that's how we identify. So it is being paid for by development, new connections. It will mean this year, because we had to last minute put this diversion project in the budget, it's likely going to mean next year higher capital facility connection charges, because in order to pay for it, we have to generate more money, not just for that project, but all growth projects. So that's how we're funding it. And the 20 million that Chris was talking about that had to do with our I&I and other things, those are basic maintenance things that we do that we would have to do anyway, regardless of whether we had this moratorium. What we're doing though is just prioritizing that work in the Baltimore City sewer service area. It's the county properties within the sewer service area that, we are jointly have a regional solution, service for wastewater treatment. So we would be doing those projects anyway. It's just that because of this moratorium, we're kind of, let's get them done there. And then we can go back. Normally we're doing them all over the county at any given time. We're concentrating in that area. So looking at from public works perspective, we're not We don't judge development. We don't determine development. We just, once development decisions are made, we have to make sure the infrastructure is there. That's where Public Works' position is on that.
I think that was a very reasonable answer. Thank you.
All right, I'm looking for flags. Any other questions? All right.
All right. I got to get to my water side of the of the improvements now. So again, I'm going to go through the water projects. I'm just going to go through these projects. They're the ones that had big changes. Figured go in these into detail. And like I said, there's 159 projects that we're currently active right now doing in the water system. But you can go to the next slide. W764300 used to be X764300. This is our water project planning project again. $4.8 million in FY27, $484,000 in FY28, $292,000 in FY29, $285,000 in FY30, and then onwards $250,000. Big effort here is to do our water asset management plan. We also have a similar water utility benchmarking project that looks at how our treatment plants are comparing and working and operating, looking for ways that we can improve them. And then we are also we're doing our plan for our upgrade for our water central water facility lab. Yeah. Next slide. W799600 is our elevated water storage tank construction project. We currently have 3 tanks programmed. One is the Hammond's Lane tank, which is under construction right now. Our Little Patuxent elevated water storage tank, which is in the Maryland City area, used to be called the Bacontown tank. They should get notice to proceed for that in July. We got bids on that. And then our Heritage Harbor elevated water storage tank, we are still looking for site locations for that. We're asking for $600,000 for this project in FY27 and then $10.3 million in FY28. Next slide. Our Crofton Meadows 2 water treatment plant expansion phase 2. This takes it from $15 million gallons a day to 20 million gallons a day. We're asking for $6.7 million in FY27, $2.8 million in FY28, and then $21.3 million in FY29 for a grand total of $86.2 million. The money that's out there, and so we currently have a contractor just recently got under contract, notice to proceed. So it says under construction, but they literally just started, I think, a few weeks ago. The $21.3 million that's out there in FY29, that's actually to construct construct our redundant well and raw water supply system. So we will finish the treatment plant first, and then the redundant water well and raw water lines will be built following that. So, all right, next slide. The Arundel water treatment plant expansion. This is it was an expansion when we took it from 8 to 16. This is actually the final well that needs to get well and raw water line needs to get constructed. We're asking for $5.3 million in FY27, and then the total for the project is $16.4 million, and that should be going to bid this year. Okay, East-West transmission main project. This is for us to basically construct a new spine along the northern part of the county to move water from the Glen Burnie Low to Glen Burnie High areas to Airport Square. All the pressure zones up and interconnecting through there. We previously had we previously bought a lot of Baltimore City water. We have a lot of connections up through there. So this is really, I'll say, in response to that, we don't quite have the infrastructure for the spine that we need, and this is actually construct that spine basically to move the water through there. So we added FY30 funding and FY31 funding in that, based off of last year's proposal budget. So you can go next slide. W809-100 is our AMI project. We are actually bring this one up. This one actually has come under, came under budget when we actually got the proposals in. We recently got an AMI contractor under contract. Actually, it's reduced by $8.4 million from last year's estimate. This will allow us to essentially put smart meters and remotely operate and manage our water system, receiving information daily and on all the water meters. So similar to, I think, what you would think about with your electrical meter usage, if you've ever had that. You can see in 15-minute increments how much water people are using. Help us more efficiently run our system, improve, limit leaks for the customers, let us understand what's going on with pressure and pressure in the system, so we can track down breaks and things of that better in the future. We are currently working in the alpha phase. The alpha phase is essentially us developing with the contractor the software, the communications infrastructure, the also call it the antennas to receive all the information. We currently have 30,000 meters of our 125,000 meters are actually AMI ready and actually are broadcasting, but we just don't have any infrastructure yet to receive that. So the alpha is to basically set up all the software and the receiving infrastructure that we need to get. That should be done in the next year. Therefore, we'll have about 25% of our system on board. The beta phase is basically to look at how we would install the meters and improve them, and then we'll do the full build out. We should be done from today, be done within 5 years, and that'll be all 125,000 meters in the county be connected as. Next one is W809600, which is our Arnold water treatment plant upgrades. This is, we're asking for $3.2 million in FY27 for a total of $21.1 million. This is the upgrades to our existing process control and our related SCADA systems that we have there. Also upgrades to the fire alarm system and construction of a new administration and maintenance building. Okay, next slide. Dorsey water treatment plant improvements. We're asking for $10 million in FY27. $7 million in FY28, $25 million in FY29 for a total of $43.8 million. This is one where we're going to be, again, replacing all those process control systems, SCADA improvements, and also the electrical and power distribution. This is going to extend the useful life of our Dorsey plant, giving us additional years of usage and likely delay some of our other improvements, other newer, potentially building a new treatment plant to the farther to the south. It's going to delay that. We'll get more useful life out of Dorsey. So, and then I think there's also an admin building in this and also a maintenance facility too. Next slide. Lead service line replacements. As you guys know that I think that Bill 9425 recently passed for us to be able to get on the private side to allow us to do test pitting to find out what the material is for those. So far, we have looked at all of the unknowns out there for the lead service line replacements, and we were lucky enough. The forethought of the previous utility folks back in 1936, they removed lead as a potential material for what you could use within the county. So it greatly reduced the number of unknowns that we know about down. We have about 7,300 unknowns that we're not sure what we need to do. We need to go out there and test them and see what they are, see if we need to replace those. Based on current surveys results we got back from doing with the public, we think there's probably likely a 10 to 20% of those probably will need to get replaced. So we're looking probably in the order of probably 16 to 1,500 of those. So this is funding in order to pay for those replacements. With that, I think there's one last slide, which is just questions on the water system projects.
Mr. Smith.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair. If you can go back to the water tower slide. Yeah, yes, elevated words. Has there been any discussion about the provinces and the water tower that's over there? I know it's under private control. Is there any discussions or concerns about their price rates and things like that? The community for a number of years have been concerned about the rate of increase in the water rates that water tower, the company that owns that, is working on. And so I'm curious if the administration has had any discussions here recently about maybe purchasing that tower or any discussions at all in reference to the provinces.
This is Karen Henry, Director, Department of Public Works. So my understanding is that another private company just bought it, American Water. They also bought Severn Water. I don't know if the purchase has been finalized, but that's our understanding. We do provide sewer services to the provinces, but they have their own private water system, and we're not involved in trying to take over their system. We haven't been have conversations about doing that.
Understood. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Volkey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can we go back to the lead pipes slide?
That's the last one, I think.
Second to last, before the question. So you all have in the total program $56 million. When we got this bill in front of us a few months ago, the price tag was approximately $12 million is what we were talking about. Doing the math that you just said, at 1,500 of these times $10,000 approximately is the price. At least that's what we were told a couple months ago. That'd be 15 million. So what's the reason for programming 4 times that amount of money into the capital program?
So I think what we thought about is since we didn't know what exactly, they could turn out all to be ones that we had to replace. We didn't know that exactly what the number is going to be, and it's a regulatory thing where we have to replace all of them. We thought we would program it in and we would adjust it as we came along the program. So that's really the rationale behind it.
All right, just so that you all know, I mean, as of this morning, I'm continuing to work with our legislative council on a bill that's going to put liens on properties if we do this, so that the property owner has to pay for it and it doesn't go to all the other ratepayers. So that was a discussion, as you know, that we had when we were talking about the bill before, and it was something that I raised as an issue, and I'm working on addressing it. So I'll welcome your feedback when we circulate that, which probably should be today or tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Fiedler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for that presentation as well, Mr. Murphy. If we could touch base on slide 24, the AMI program. I know you said all county meters will be incorporated into the program within 5 years. Is the first group going to happen in the next fiscal year? And if so, where in the county was it decided that the first group will roll out?
So we have been putting in, I'll just say roughly over the past 5 years, when we've been putting in new meters, we've had those new meters have the technology built into it.
Okay.
It's roughly I think it's about 30,000 meters roughly that have this technology already built in. So it's all across the county. But we should within the year have the system up and running. Where there'll be receivers where they can receive the signal, the software set up, likely the interface for the public would be in about a year from now. For those first 30,000, then we'll do a beta test. The beta test is really, hey, let's go out and install a couple thousand meters and make sure we work out all the kinks of how we're installing these things, what do we need to do in the actual work process. And then after that, the next 3.5 years, they'll be doing all the rest of them. So within 5 years, we'll have all 125,000 meters that are for the public water meter system changed out.
And thank you for that information. As you go and proactively, not in response to the homeowner or the meter having an issue and replacing it, as you go out and start replacing ones to get the county as a whole up on this program, what is the communication like between the county and the homeowner on this new technology and how it's being used?
So part of this there'll be a public outreach program. Okay. We haven't designed that part of it yet, but there's definitely going to be a public outreach program. Definitely
okay.
Successful.
Perfect.
We have created some materials for that. But a lot of it's going to have to do with the company just got the contract and where they're going to start. We've given a little bit of leeway for them about exactly where most efficiently the meters can be installed and they can start, and also the final outreach, how we're going to do that, who we're going to do it to. There'll be a website with all the detailed information people can reach out to. And we're also, with the new fixed fee, if that gets approved in the budget, there'll be some overlap of explaining the two things, that this AMI is not, we didn't create the fixed fee just to do AMI. So we will be working carefully to make sure that that's clearly understood.
Yes.
No.
Okay. And then I appreciate all of that information. One final question: as you do work to install these meters countywide, can certain constituents who have been eager for this technology versus constituents who maybe have no idea what it is or that it's coming, can those ones who have been requesting it for years, can they proactively request it from the department to be, next in line for replacement?
They're going to be going neighborhood by neighborhood because that's the most efficient way. But we certainly would be welcome to, get requests and see if that would, move up a neighborhood if we have a lot, not a lot, but more than one person asking for it in a certain area. Because we want to do it as efficiently as possible, and it will cost more if we go from Arnold one day and then we have to go up to Pasadena the next day. So that's will be part of the consideration.
Wonderful. I appreciate this slide. It's probably one of my favorite in this presentation. I think I ask questions on this project every single year and have for about 6 years. So thank you very much.
Well, we appreciate your interest and keep pushing on the importance of doing it. So thank you.
Of course.
Okay. All right. I don't see any other flags. Ms. Henry, I'm going to jump back to before we go to the wastewater to ask you. You touched on the moratorium. The presentation touched on the moratorium. In speaking to some of the developers, I've been told that County Executive Pittman has been telling them that we're about to be able to make some big changes to the moratorium, but nothing like that has been communicated to the council. So I just want to know if you could speak on that.
The county executive has been saying pretty much since we put this moratorium in place, he's been saying we're going to be lifting the moratorium, but we have to have all the right things in place in order to do that. And we are close to a solution that will allow us to lift it. The details of that are still being negotiated. I'm hoping it will be very soon, within the next week. We will be contacting Mr. Smith, Ms. Pickard, and Ms. Hummer ahead of time before anything does go out, but we do have some agreements that have to be signed off on before we can make anything public.
Okay, so all right, that's evidently what's being told to other people as well, but
not from me. So I don't know where the leak is, but it is.
Yes,
not,
that's why I'm asking you, because I know we haven't heard it from your office, but other stakeholders involved in this have been hearing it from other offices. So just wanted to touch base on that. So all right, I don't see any other questions from council members. Is there more? Have we covered everything for DPW?
That's it.
That is it for Public Works. Yes, we are done, and we just, wrapping up. We appreciate the support you all have provided over the years you've been in office, and we look forward to our continued collaboration. And any questions you may have that come to you after, please reach out. We're happy to answer them.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. Y'all keep everything, all the things that we all take for granted, y'all keep it running, and we appreciate you keeping your eyes on it so we don't have to worry about it, that we can turn on our water each day and feel safe.
Thank you.
So is there any other business any council member would like to bring before the county council at this time? Seeing nothing, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The County Council is adjourned until Wednesday, May 27th, 2026 at 10 a.m. when we will meet in the council chambers for the auditor's presentation and the administration's response. Thank you very much. Everybody have a good day.